Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 261 based on novel. So let's start. Saint Woodcutter examined the skin in detail, and his heart stirred slightly. I recognize him. His name is Ning Jin. He's one of the gods I've sent out to scout in the darkness. I laid down the heavenly devil creation technique on his body to ensure the monsters wouldn't eat him in the darkness. Is he still alive? Qin Mu said, not dead and not alive. Teacher, he has already finished his mission. Saint Woodcutter revealed a moved look in his eyes, but he didn't express it. He nodded his head slowly. Do you have a way to wake him up? Qin Mu shook his head and said, when night arrives, he will come alive, and at that time, teacher will be able to meet him. At that moment, a wave of darkness flooded up. When King Yama moved, his body dragged along the darkness to cover them. The human skin instantly floated up like a paper human, and flesh started to grow from under the skin. Soon, the god of founding emperor was filled with flesh and blood as he stood in front of them like a living human. He can live in Fengju, King Yama said from under his cape of darkness. The god of founding emperor examined his hands repeatedly and revealed a look of astonishment. He muttered and said, this is the feeling of being alive, this is the feeling of living. 20,000 years, this is the first time I feel that I'm alive. Qin Mu couldn't stop himself from saying, Senior, you're actually dead. King Yama had brought the living realm of the dead to your side to let you feel like you are living. The god of founding emperor was so agitated that he couldn't hold himself back. Suddenly, he saw Saint Woodcutter, and his eyes turned red. He immediately knelt on one knee and cupped his fists high over his head while saying in a strong voice, I pay my respects to Heavenly Teacher. Heavenly Words Division Ning Jin. Time taken 20,600 years. I've come to report on the completion of my mission. Report. 58 men of Heavenly Words Division sought out the source of the darkness under Heavenly Teacher's orders. 57 men perished, and their souls were scattered. Only this subordinate is lucky not to fail the mission, and sought of the truth of the darkness. May Heavenly Teacher allow this subordinate to return to my position. Saint Woodcutter was silent, and light flowed in his eyes, but it never flowed out. After a moment, he entered the darkness and held up Ning Jin's arm. Soldier of Heavenly Words Division, your mission is completed. Thank you, Heavenly Teacher. Ning Jin got up, and his body was straight. He was like a soldier that was waiting for inspection, and he shouted, Ning Jin request to return to Heavenly Words Division. Saint Woodcutter revealed a smile and said, Founding Emperor era has been wiped out. I've failed all of you. Heavenly Words Division has also been disbanded. Ning Jin, you are free. Ning Jin was in a daze and stared with his eyes wide open, apparently still unable to face the fact. He said with much difficulty, Heavenly Teacher, it's been 20,000 years. I have always been waiting to return. Heavenly Teacher, Ning Jin is back to report. May I return to my position? Saint Woodcutter frowned. Founding Emperor Celestial Heavens is already finished. There's no more Heavenly Words Division. You are free now, Ning Jin. The god of founding emperor had a trembling voice as he cried out with a hoarse voice, Ning Jin wishes to return to my position. Saint Woodcutter was silent for a long time, and his voice was also trembling slightly. It was very hard for him to reveal his true emotions, yet at that moment, he had to suppress his Tao heart to speak out word by word. Soldier of Founding Emperor, Heavenly Words Division, Ning Jin, I allow you to return to your position. Ning Jin revealed a smile and continued to cry out loud. Saint Woodcutter pat his shoulder with a complicated gaze, and he no longer spoke. Qin Mu looked at them. What kind of emperor must one be to have such a soldier? Founding emperor. But he was hiding in Carefree Village, and once he had hidden, it had continued for 20,000 years. He probably has forgotten about the bunch of followers that would follow him even to death. The gods of founding emperor never owed us Qin family anything. They don't owe anything. It's the Qin family that owe these loyal and righteous men, he thought to himself. Xu Xinghua asked curiously, Cult Master Qin, for what reason have you invited us over? Qin Mu told them about his experience in Heavenly Yin world and said, everyone here surpasses me in intelligence. I can't solve Goddess of Heavenly Yin's problem, so you guys might be able to think of an idea. Everyone stared with their eyes wide open, seemingly finding his words hard to believe. Saint Woodcutter knew Qin Mu had followed Elder Angler to fish the suns and the moons. He didn't expect that Elder Angler was gone and the brat had actually run into Heavenly Yin world. I dispatched 58 gods from Heavenly Word's division to scout Heavenly Yin world, none of them came back alive, and he just barged in like that. Saint Woodcutter shook his head secretly and thought to himself, this brat is the same as that big disciple of mine, they are both fearless. My big disciple is doing this to become a saint, but what is he doing it for? It couldn't be just for satisfying his curiosity, right? He was truly helpless toward Qin Mu. The dangers of Heavenly Yin world could be imagined, and yet Qin Mu could live to return and even revive Goddess of Heavenly Yin, who had died for countless years. That kind of experience and opportunity, as well as the method of solving the problem, was something even he felt inconceivable. Cult Master Qin, who did you say are the people that surpassed you in intelligence? Xu Xinghua gave a rare smile and held his laughter back. Can Cult Master repeat that sentence? Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor coughed and said, I would also like to hear second senior brother say it once more. First Ancestor Human Emperor said with a smile, me too. Mua, repeat the sentence you said just now. King Yama's voice came from far away, as though it was coming from Fengdu. To be able to hear praise from such a proud person admitting he's not as smart as us, I'm content. They were all ruthlessly beaten down by Qin Mu before. There was no explanation needed for First Ancestor, and Xu Xinghua had also been won over by Qin Mu. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was even more astonished at the Primordial Spirit Guide and 3 Primordial Spirit Assembly. He was even more astonished at the 18th sword form that Qin Mu had created. As for King Yama, there was no need to mention what had happened. Being beaten up in Hall of King Qin was a shadow he had to bear for the rest of his life. Qin Mu's face was black as ink, and he sneered. There are only 4 people among you guys that are smarter than me, think of the one who is not smarter than me. Once he said that everyone fell into deep thoughts. First Ancestor sighed and had a depressed look on his face. He thought to himself, he wasn't willing to learn my heaven and earth mudra, he must have felt my mudra skills aren't as good as his. King Yama felt he wasn't as smart as the brat as well and sighed to himself. His body faded into the darkness. The corners of Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's eyes trembled, and he didn't say a word. Xu Xinghua thought it over in detail, and felt that even though he surpassed Qin Mu in certain aspects, he still didn't have the confidence to defeat him. Thus, he was also slightly disappointed. There's a rumor from ancient times of killing 3 soldiers with 1 peach, and now Qin Mu has beaten down 4 wise men with just 1 sentence. Saint Woodcutter said with a smile, you guys don't have to be at a loss, he is never as smart as us. He is the overlord body, he has good assets naturally, but he is only on celestial being realm now. It shows his brain is stupid, that's why his cultivation is held back. Let's go, let us visit Goddess of Heavenly Yin in Heavenly Yin world. Qin Mu retorted with a low voice, teacher's cultivation is the lowest among the 4 great heavenly teachers, it shows how stupid you are as well. Saint Woodcutter took out his axe and whetstone to sharpen his axe. Sparks flew, and Qin Mu stopped talking. He hurriedly brought them to Heavenly Yin world. The dragon Qin didn't dare to enter heavenly Yin world, and Qin Mu could only let him follow He to repair the roads. Everyone looked down, and they saw darkness flowing about. The black sand had drowned out everything, and there was only a high tower suppressing the monster in the darkness. They were forced to the boundaries of heavenly Yin world. This is the black soul sand and the starved ghosts. Everyone looked around. It was also the first time Yang Jingjing had gone there, and she was very curious. Xu Xinghua's cultivation was the lowest, and he was on celestial being realm like Qin Mu. He tried to touch the darkness, and Saint Woodcutter shook his head. Be careful of the starved ghosts. They have extremely fast speed. Xu Xinghua said with a smile, the starved ghosts are being suppressed by that tower over there, they can't come over. I want to catch one, so we can research them in detail. Wait a moment. Qin Mu disappeared into the darkness, and after a moment, he appeared again with a starved ghost in his hand. Xu Xinghua was about to examine it in detail when Saint Woodcutter said, let us greet the goddess first, we can't forget our manners. Everyone went to the seashore, and they could see Goddess of Heavenly Yin sitting from a distance away. Everyone raised their heads to look, and their hearts trembled violently. Mingju's black deity could kill such a powerful ancient god, so how astonishing are his abilities. Qin Mu led everyone forward, and Goddess of Heavenly Yin examined them curiously. Great Wizard, are these people the ones you said are smarter than you? Goddess, this is my teacher, Woodcutter. He is the pillar of founding Emperor Era's reform. This is Imperial Preceptor, and he is the pillar of the current Era's reform. This is King Yama of Fengju, he took a part of Yudu as his territory and occupies the Great Ruins. He has extremely high attainments in the art of the soul. This is first ancestor human emperor, and he created sacred secrets of heaven and earth heart. The level of his technique reached luminous sky, but that was something that was 20,000 years ago. At that time, he was only a prince that was seeking knowledge. Even though he has been wasted for these 20,000 years, his aptitudes and comprehension are outstanding. This is Xu Xinghua. His a pseudo-overlord body, and he could also create a grand feat such as combining the 7 stars and 6 directions, those 2 great divine treasures. Qin Mu introduced them one by one and said, I'm frequently stunned by their intelligence, and I admire their knowledge very much. Their intelligence isn't inferior to Son of Heaven Yin, and maybe we could help Goddess of Heavenly Yin completely solve the problem in Heavenly Yin world. Everyone gave a greeting. We pay our respects to Goddess. Goddess of Heavenly Yin raised her hand and said, everyone, there's no need for formalities. Great Wizard helped me to think of 2 ideas that treat the symptoms, but can't solve the root cause of the problem in Heavenly Yin world. Since all of you have wisdom that surpasses others, can you guess what the 2 ideas the Great Wizard thought of? She didn't trust that they could defeat Qin Mu's in terms of intelligence, so she wanted to test them. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor muttered and said, could it be hanging a sun in Heavenly Yin world? Goddess of Heavenly Yin's eyes lit up. Xu Xinghua raised his head to look at the sky. He pondered and said, maybe it is to drill a hole on Heaven Duke's soul and steal Heaven Duke's power. First ancestor human emperor gave some thoughts and said, I feel it should be taking the statue of a god to block the crack where Heavenly Yin world and Great Ruins are connected, making the darkness unable to flood into the Great Ruins. King Yama shook his head and said, that won't do, Heavenly Yin world will still be in chaos. Human Emperor Qin's idea is definitely to release the other him that's suppressed in the heart of his brows, to let him, whose nose is stuck all up on the top of his head, to swallow all of the starved ghosts and darkness here. Earth Count shouldn't be able to come here, so he can't invite Earth Count. He can only invite that ruffian. Goddess of Heavenly Yin was surprised and delighted. There were actually 2 more ideas than what Qin Mu had suggested, and it showed that their wisdom was truly a cut above the rest. She hurriedly looked at Saint Woodcutter, and asked politely, "Why hasn't Tao friend mentioned your solution?" Saint Woodcutter pondered and said, "I was thinking if Goddess had been schemed against by Black Deity, and been eaten up by the starved ghosts, then Goddess would also have become a starved ghost after you died. Am I right? If Goddess can come back to life, it shows that the problem of the starved ghosts has already been solved. So why do we still need to think of other ideas?" Goddess of Heavenly Yin's mind was blown, and she cried out, "So you are then the smartest one in the world?" "I'm not," Saint Woodcutter said righteously. "The one that revived Goddess is probably even wiser than I am. May I ask, Goddess, who is this person?" Goddess of Heavenly Yin looked at Qin Mu, and Qin Mu smiled silently. However, he couldn't conceal his pleased look. Saint Woodcutter took a glance at him and said indifferently, "He clearly has a solution, yet he doesn't know it himself. This shows he isn't very smart." Qin Mu's face was black like iron. Goddess of Heavenly Yin looked around and praised them. "The intelligence and wisdom of everyone here are rare to find in this world. Never did I expect 6 to appear in such a short while. What kind of world is it now? How are there so many talents in such a short time?" Qin Mu said with a smile, "Goddess, these 6 people in front of you can be said to be the wise ones in the recent 20,000 years. How could we stop at 1 in a trillion? Now, the wisdom of these 20,000 years is gathered right in front of you." Saint Woodcutter hurried him. "Quickly execute your divine art that revived the goddess. Stop praising yourself. There are only 5 wise ones in these recent 20,000 years. You are the overlord body, you aren't smart." Qin Mu was angered, but he still executed his technique to take out the Book of Yudu. He executed the soul guide he had tweaked, and he also changed the structure of the Gate of Heaven influence. Yudu language rang out once more, and everyone scrunched their brows when they heard him. Qin Mu turned the Gate of Heaven influence around to steal the power from Heaven Duke before stealing the power from Earth Count and finally, stealing power from both of them at the same time. Everyone was dazzled, and their heads grew muddled from listening. "It's the Yudu language, so I can understand 80%. King Yama executed his technique, and a gate similar to the Gate of Heaven influence appeared behind him. However, I've never seen this book before. Also, there are probably some issues with stealing Heaven Duke and Earth Count's power. No matter which one of them it is, we can't handle their wrath. I can understand 60% of the Yudu language." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said, "I've studied for a period of time under teacher, but there are still many cryptic places. I probably can't learn it either." Saint Woodcutter frowned and said, "I also can't fully understand what he said. As for stealing Heaven Duke and Earth Count's power, it's fine if we steal a little. However, if we steal too much, these 2 beings probably won't be able to sit by and do nothing. If we steal their power to revive the souls of Heavenly Yin world, they would definitely be angered." Xu Xinghua and First Ancestor Human Emperor had never learned the Yudu language before, so they were puzzled. Xu Xinghua asked, "Since we can't steal Earth Count and Heaven Duke's power, why can't we change Cult Master Qin's divine art and take a roundabout route?" Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said, "It's not taking a roundabout route, it's just Cult Master has established a very solid foundation for us. Goddess, Heavenly Yin world probably doesn't have its own unique system of divine arts yet, am I right?" Goddess of Heavenly Yin nodded her head and said, "There are originally many divine arts practitioners living here, but they are all people from the outside world. They said they were here to hide from the chaos of wars, and they brought divine arts from the outside world. In the past, there were no divine arts practitioners and only me." Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor revealed a smile and said, "In that case, from today onwards, Heavenly Yin world can have its own system of divine arts as well." Xu Xinghua's eyes lit up, and he took a look at Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor while thinking to himself, the saint that appears once every 500 years indeed has unmatched intelligence. However, the reason why Saint Woodcutter said nothing was probably to see the intelligence and wisdom of this disciple of his. First Ancestor and King Yama also instantly achieved enlightenment, and First Ancestor smiled. After Imperial Preceptor's guidance, we have finally found a path. King Yama also sighed in relief. Human Emperor Qin's divine art is the key to creating Heavenly Yin World's system of divine arts. Saint Woodcutter looked at Qin Mu and said, "Disciple, explain your divine art to us." Qin Mu explained this divine art in detail, and everyone there was exceptionally wise, so they had it memorized after listening to it once. They all paced to and fro. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor chanted Yudu language silently, and the black salt sand around him started to fluctuate. Xu Shenghua stopped in his footsteps and chanted Yudu language towards the starved ghost Qin Mu had captured. The starved ghost opened its mouth to screech, and black sand kept flowing out of its body. At the same time, black sand from outside was pouring in as well. First Ancestor Human Emperor borrowed the Book of Yudu, and used his vital qi to imitate the writings of Yudu. He tried to make some changes to Qin Mu's divine art. King Yama had some studies in regards to Yudu divine arts, so he just changed Qin Mu's divine art right away. On the other hand, Saint Woodcutter kept walking around founding Emperor God Ningjin, and looked non-stop. They all had their own thoughts, and every one of them had a different understanding. They were all tampering with Qin Mu's divine art. Only Yang Jingjing truly had no studies in the field, so she could only look at the weird people obediently. Qin Mu looked at them with a black face. In the past, it was always him that was tampering with other people's divine art, and he could finally experience how it was like to have his divine art tampered with by others. After some time, they were either walking or lying down, sitting or sprinting as they pondered over the solution with much effort. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor drew some strange runes on the beach while First Ancestor just drew in the sky with his vital qi. Xu Shenghua took out a scale and calculation spirit weapons to calculate rapidly. He wrote down strange equations on the ground and tried to solve them. Behind King Yama floated a huge metal ring, and all kinds of runes were glowing on and off on the ring. Saint Woodcutter took down the necklace that Qin Mu had crafted for Ning Jin, before turning to take a look at the celestial dipper that Son of Heaven Yin had created. It wasn't known how long had passed when everyone gathered around the celestial dipper. They used their own vital qi to imprint the void, and gorgeous runes appeared in the sky. They were golden-colored runes, and the runes kept bursting forth with golden light that was like sand. It was like black soul sand, but it wasn't black in color. What are they doing? Goddess of Heavenly Yin also couldn't understand what she was seeing and asked Qin Mu and Yang Jingjing with a soft voice. Qin Mu had a grim expression as he said with a low voice, "They are trying to tidy out some basic runes for Heavenly Yin World's divine arts through my divine art and Son of Heaven Yin's celestial dipper. From there onwards, they can deduce all of the basic runes." Goddess of Heavenly Yin was slightly stunned. Basic runes of Heavenly Yin World. There's such a thing. Goddess has never gone out before, right? You might not know, but the divine arts in this world are mostly constructed by basic runes. Qin Mu explained: wind, rain, thunder, lightning, cloud, fog, sky, stars, and even including creation, every kind of divine art has the structure of basic runes. For example, sword skills. Sword skills have 18 basic sword moves. Meanwhile, Goddess Heavenly Yin World is a world that's different from the outside world. Heavenly Yin World has different rules, and it could be said to have its own system of paths, skills, and divine arts. Yang Jingjing relied on the sun ship to force herself up to God Realm, so she didn't understand much about the basic of paths, skills, and divine arts. At that moment, she was also listening attentively to patch what she lacked. That divine art, that I used to revive Goddess, is derived from the divine arts of a few big systems. The divine arts from the systems of Yudu, Mingju, Xuanju, creation, the God path, the devil path, the Buddha path, and Tao sect were all involved. These are the big systems, while for the small systems, there's too many to count. Only by combining the systems of so many divine arts was I able to revive Goddess. Qin Mu continued, however, what I'm using isn't the basic runes of heavenly yin world. I had merely used the knowledge of these systems to imitate the basic runes of heavenly yin world. Goddess of heavenly yin understood a little more and said, so they're getting rid of the systems of other worlds through your divine art, and son of heaven yin's treasure, and trying to create a kind of basic runes that belongs to heavenly yin world. The more they deduced, the closer they will get to the true basic runes. Qin Mu nodded his head and said with a smile, Goddess, look at the runes in front of them, there's already lesser and lesser of the appearance of the runes from the outside world. Other than my divine art and son of heaven yin's treasure, they also need to understand Goddess divine power and the runes on your body. Saint Woodcutter and the rest walked over, and they floated up to examine the divine light on Goddess of heavenly yin's body in detail. They recorded down the natural runes before examining the runes on the Goddess body as well. The runes were strange runes that Goddess of heavenly yin was born with. Goddess of heavenly yin didn't have much contact with the outside world, so she didn't know much about the runes on her body. After a long time, the 5 of them landed back on the ground and began to discuss softly. There are 108 kinds of runes on the Goddess body, and we have also deduced 216 kinds from Cult Master's divine art, and son of heaven yin's treasure. Xu Xinghua tidied up the runes and swiped his hands across the sky. Runes formed by golden sand appeared where his hand had swept past. A total of 324 runes. These runes are the basis of heavenly yin world's system of divine arts. Xu Xinghua continued to say, Goddess, please take a look. Different arrangement of the runes can result in different effects. His vital qi transformed and combined dozens of runes to transform into a divine art. He struck the divine art on that starved ghost, and the black sand inside the starved ghost's body got erased and turned into spirit energy that belonged to heaven and earth. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor executed another kind of divine art, which was also formed by the 324 basic runes, and he said, you can also gather the soul that belonged to the original body back together. After the starved ghost died, only human skin was left, and when Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor executed his divine art, black sand in heavenly yin world could be seen flying over like smoke that poured back into the human skin. King Yama executed another kind of divine art and said, you can also reconstruct the black soul sand and turn them into souls. His divine art was effective on the black sand in the human sand. The black sand was gradually condensing, and had the momentum of returning into the state of a complete soul. First ancestor human emperor also executed a mudra skill that was formed by the runes and said, you can also suppress the starved ghosts and subdue them. When he executed his mudra skill, he was like a king of the starved ghosts, making numerous starved ghosts of heavenly yin world shiver in fear. Saint Woodcutter said with a smile, Goddess, in the past, the basic runes of heavenly yin world weren't complete, and now they are complete. Goddess can now control the starved ghosts to fight for you, and you can also punish the starved ghosts. You can even protect the people living in heavenly yin world. From today onwards, you can be free of worries. Qin Mu sighed ruefully and said, in the future, countless techniques and divine arts of heavenly yin world will probably come from these 324 runes. Saint Woodcutter took out his woodcutting axe and started hacking on a cliff beside the sea to carve these runes on the cliff. Goddess, this matter is settled, we shall be taking our leave. Goddess of heavenly yin got up to send them off. My aptitude is slow, so I can only trouble the wise ones. If I can be of any help in the future, everyone here can just come forth with my token, and I will definitely do my best to help. She pulled out a strand of divine light from her body and separated into 7 strands, which she refined into 7 luminous pearls that she gave to Woodcutter, Imperial Preceptor, First Ancestor, King Yama, Shu Xinghua, as well as Qin Mu and Yang Jingjing. Yang Jingjing hurriedly rejected and said, "I didn't do anything, I dare not accept." Goddess of Heavenly Yin said with a smile, "It's for your little lover beside you. Keep it for him." Yang Jingjing blushed and quickly kept the divine bead. Everyone walked out of Heavenly Yin world, and when they saw the sunlight outside, they all felt very comfortable. Disciple, now you know how people that are truly wise looks like, am I right? Saint Woodcutter said with a chuckle. Qin Mu also laughed. That's because all of you are standing on the shoulders of a giant. If I didn't create the divine art to revive Goddess of Heavenly Yin, you guys wouldn't have been able to deduce the basic runes of Heavenly Yin world at all. The shoulders of a giant. Saint Woodcutter laughed out loudly while teleportation formations swirled around him. With a whoosh, he had vanished without a trace. Human Emperor Qin, farewell. King Yama moved back, and the darkness poured forward. In the next instant, he disappeared. Eternal peace, Imperial Preceptor said, "We will meet in eternal peace again." After saying that, he also teleported away. Qin Mu looked at First Ancestor Human Emperor, and he shook his head. "I can't stay here and accompany you. I still have matters to attend to." Once he said that he rose into the sky and disappeared after transforming into a beam of divine light. Truly a bunch of smart fellows. Qin Mu sighed and didn't turn back. "Brother Shu, I didn't say you were." Shu Xinghua laughed loudly, and he stepped into the sky. His figure appeared and disappeared as lotus flower bloomed one after another in the sky. Part 262. Qin Mu saw Shu Xinghua off, and King Yama had taken Ning Jin to Fengdu. Maybe that was a place suitable for his survival. Each of them had their own characteristics, and Goddess of Heavenly Yin's trouble was solved. With 324 kinds of Heavenly Yin world's runes, Heavenly Yin world will not be a dead world in the future. Instead, it will become a flourishing world. Qin Mu sighed ruefully in his heart. There would be many divine arts practitioners entering Heavenly Yin world, which would make Heavenly Yin world flourish more and more. Divine arts would also have 100 classical philosophic schools, which could let the arts have free expression. The reform of eternal peace was also not just empty talk. With the assistance from Goddess of Heavenly Yin, the power of the reform would only become stronger and stronger. However, all of that needed time. Eternal peace still hadn't grown up yet, nor had Heavenly Yin world. And now it's the most dangerous period. The flames of the reform could be extinguished at any moment. Qin Mu frowned slightly and decided not to think about the troubling matters. He went to find the dragon Qilin with Yang Jingjing and saw he was doing hard work along with He. He was being commanded by the women of West Earth to do this and that. The dragon Qilin wanted to cry, but he has no tears and couldn't reject. The female divine arts practitioners of West Earth cultivated the divine arts of all that had spirits, and all things that had souls. They controlled his body with a kind of strange divine art whenever they liked and made him work. Fatty Dragon is actually so hardworking. Qin Mu was very gratified and said with a smile, "Fatty Dragon, help me carry my sword pellet, it's time we return to eternal peace." The sword pellet was over 100 yards and astonishingly heavy. The dragon Qilin had planned to reject, but he suddenly thought, "I've helped the girls of West Earth to do so much work. If I don't help Cult Master, I won't have any more spirit pills from today onwards." He braced himself to carry the sword pellet, and Qin Mu was very happy. Fatty Dragon has indeed become much more hardworking. Ever since Yang Jingjing received that strand of qi of pure yin, she felt her foundation gradually becoming stable, and her body was getting better and better. She was very happy. The two of them walked, and laughter came out continuously. Qin Mu brought Yang Jingjing to the Sun Well and said, "The Emperor will send out an imperial decree for you to come out, and use the sun on the sun ship to light up Supreme Emperor Heaven and Luofu Heaven, helping these two heavens to regain their life force. However, you don't have to worry, as long as the bodies of pure Yang and the bodies of pure Yin are found, you won't have to drive the sun ship everywhere. Even though your cultivation is very high, your foundation isn't stable enough. You need to walk out of the Sun Well and seek knowledge in eternal peace. You have to learn some basics. I'll be waiting for you in eternal peace." The two of them parted reluctantly, and Qin Mu saw her off into the Sun Well before he continued to head east. He sat on the back of the dragon Qilin, and took out the heavenly fire of Xuanju to study in detail. Ever since he had gotten the prism of heavenly fire, he didn't have the time to study it in detail. He had only used it once and would pass it to let Yang Jingjing use the rest of the time. Since it's fire, why would it have a physical form? Why would it become a fire crystal? He couldn't help being puzzled. The prism of heavenly fire was the heavenly fire of Heaven Duke, and even though its power was strong, it was a pity, because he couldn't control the heat. His attainments in the field were inferior to Yang Jingjing, and his fire attribute divine arts weren't as exquisite. At that moment, he suddenly realized the crystal structure was transforming continuously, and he was slightly stunned. He hurriedly examined it in detail, and could see numerous flames that had the structure of crystal. The flames were formed by hexagon crystal that was born and erased continuously. It was fascinating. A kind of strange algebra sight. Qin Mu's spirit was roused, and he continued to examine. He saw other fire crystals inside the hexagon-shaped heavenly fire, and they were octagon-shaped. However, they weren't stable as it was sometimes flat and sometimes round. He was full of excitement and continued to look in detail. He only saw the heavenly fire separating into layers and layers of algebra structure. The deeper he delved in, the more complicated the algebra structures became. He peeked into the inside of the heavenly fire. Layers and layers of algebra structure appeared and behind them, and the crystal shapes at the back were no longer limited to purely how much geometry there was. Instead, it was becoming more and more complicated. Qin Mu took out a scale to measure and recorded down on paper with a brush. He then assembled his calculation spirit weapons to write lines of equations, trying to solve the marvel of the heavenly fire. He researched deeper and deeper into the fire and seemed to lose track of day and night. He was entranced with the transformation of the algebra. He subconsciously explored to the core of the heavenly fire, and there were small dots there were colliding at inconceivably high speeds, therefore, extremely high temperature and destructive force were produced. What was weird was that all of the incomparably small dots had their own different paths, and when they were circulating, they would draw out perfect algebra structure. If he used vital qi to activate the heavenly fire, that kind of collision would become even more violent, and the temperature of the heavenly fire would reach the extreme. This is the finest form of the heavenly fire crystal. Qin Mu seemed to see scenes of the most beautiful paintings, and he couldn't help being intoxicated. Algebra was then the most perfect and beautiful painting, and the two great computational canons of Tao sect couldn't be used to explain the microscopic structure of the heavenly fire. Computational canon of supreme mystery and computational canon of mysterious lady could be used to explain the macroscopic structure of the universe and the stars. However, they were completely unsuitable for the microscopic structure of the heavenly fire. Qin Mu continuously deduced and recorded more and more things. He understood more and more regarding the microscopic structure of the heavenly fire. He put his heart into it, and the mathematical equations he had tidied out could even be compiled into a new computational canon. Because the dragon Qilin was carrying the sword pellet, it was strenuous for him to walk. In addition to that, Qin Mu was only interested in the microscopic algebra of the heavenly fire, and didn't have the time to hurry him, so the dragon Qin was much more relaxed. Finally, Qin Mu deduced the microscopic shape of the heavenly fire, and he finished the last equation. Qin Mu stretched his back and arranged the stack of papers from the front to the back, before revealing a satisfied smile. Dao Sec's computation canon is called Computation Canons of Supreme Mystery, so my computation canon shall be called Computation Canon of Supreme Molecule. Computation Canon of Supreme Mystery and Computation Canon of Supreme Molecule were two entirely different algebra systems. The algebra used was completely different. Computation Canon of Supreme Mystery was used to explain the macroscopic scale of the universe and all things, while Computation Canon of Supreme Molecule was used to explain the microscopic scale of the universe and all things. To elaborate, it was the great Tao of the microscopic. Of course, Qin Mu had only deduced the Computation Canon of Supreme Molecule from the heavenly fire, and there were still many places that were lacking. He could only elaborate on the heavenly fire of Xuandu. In that case, wouldn't I be able to calculate the great Tao of heavenly fire? Qin Mu got excited and focused on deducing the fine crystal structure of the great Tao of heavenly fire. His understanding of the fire runes was inferior to Yang Jingjing, and it was because he didn't study as much as Yang Jingjing. However, the scope of his studies was much wider than hers. His fire runes had the system of vermilion bird runes that belonged to vermilion bird vital qi, the system of Mars sovereign runes from Mars fire Marquis true technique, and finally, it was all of the god fire and devil fire that was in great educational heavenly devil scriptures. There were even the flame dragon writings from ancestral dragon supreme mystery technique. Even so, Qin Mu's control over the fire runes was far from perfect. That was because other than those, there were still fire runes from Great Sun Sovereign, fire runes from the Phoenix, as well as flame divine art from the devil race and many more other types of fire. Deducing the great Tao of heavenly fire, he had to throw away all of the fire runes he had learned and start from zero again. And the most difficult step from zero was to write the word one. The word 1 was the first point that would determine the course and form a basic algebra structure. From the course of the first point, the algebra structure of the second point could be calculated. The third point would then be determined, followed by the fourth. Only when all of the algebra structures formed a unique crystal structure, the first step would be considered complete. Next, he could then use Computation Canon of Supreme Molecule to calculate out different crystal structures. By arranging the crystals differently, they could form divine arts with different kinds of power. Qin Mu tried to calculate, while the dragon Qin carried him and the sword pellet to move forward with heavy steps. When they arrived at the God-broken mountain range that had been razed down to the ground, he had finally confirmed the first divine art of the great Tao of heavenly fire. The divine art was very rough and unpolished. Tao has no power, and divine art was what that had power. The divine art was the way to express the power of the great Tao of heavenly fire. With the first divine art, he could work hard on the field and create the second heavenly fire divine art, followed by the third. Suddenly a voice cried out, "Son of Yudu Qin Fengqing." Qin Mu was slightly stunned. There weren't many people that called him Son of Yudu, and Qin Fengqing as well. He raised his head and revealed a smile. Brother Qi Jiui. Qi Jiui stood on the ruin of the God-broken mountain range, and said indifferently, "Son of Yudu, I'm here to take my leave. I'm returning to the celestial heavens, and I won't be bothering with the matter of the lower bound." Do you know what this means? Qin Mu's gaze sparkled. This means that the celestial heavens are about to make a move on eternal peace. Qi Jiui nodded his head and said, "I've been traveling around eternal peace during these few days, and I've seen eternal peace imperial preceptors reform burning like a wildfire. After that, I saw my 3 senior brothers, you know them." Qin Mu said, "Lu Yinxiu, Kuei Qingpei, and Fu Yanqi, the 3 of them." Could they have entered the Great Ruins when Supreme Emperor Heaven crashed down? However, with just the three of them, they can't do anything much. With so many experts in eternal peace are here this time, killing the three of them wouldn't be much of a problem. THG had a smile that was yet not a smile. They are here to descend the calamity, and not to fight with you guys. Descending disaster isn't too difficult for them. To a god that controls Mingju's life and death book, it's simple to wipe out millions and millions of people. They don't need to spend any effort at all. The corners of Qin Mu's eyes jumped. The life and death book indeed had that kind of power. THG said, sacrificing so many people, and offering them to the stone statues in eternal peace, reviving the gods to launch a massacre, can help to revive even more god statues. Qin Mu shook his head and said, those gods are helpless even if they revive. There are so many strong practitioners in eternal peace now. In addition to that, the power of the Great Ruins is immeasurable, so what can they do if they revive? THG said, you have a divine pot on you called Five Thunder Pot, right? That is a divine weapon that was crafted by North Deity, and inside it are 5 great thunderclouds. In the thunderclouds are the Fire Bell divine weapons. Qin Mu nodded his head and said, I've heard of this North Deity before, he is called Dark Warrior Great Deity. THG said, Dark Warrior Great Deity is a natural-born sacred god. Qin Mu said, Founding Emperor once invited North Deity as a guest. THG said, and the divine weapon of North Deity has now become a weapon to descend calamity. 5 Thunderpot is merely one of them, there are also other divine weapons that had come to eternal peace, and you guys must have hidden them, am I right? That is why you guys have nothing to fear. If the divine weapon of North Deity is one of the divine weapons to descend calamity, do you think the other divine weapons would be weak? Do you think you guys can really hide these weapons? Qin Mu's expression changed slightly. The other divine weapons are not inferior to North Deity's divine weapons. Could they be natural-born sacred gods as well? That's right. THG said, descending disaster is originally the methods of natural-born sacred gods. When the stone statues in eternal peace revive, those weapons will break free from your control. If I'm you, I would leave this place as soon as possible and hide as far as I can. Qin Mu took in a deep breath, and the gleam in his eyes flickered. He asked solemnly, Brother Qi, we are clearly opponents, so why do you have to warn me of such an important matter? THG revealed a smile. I merely have a grudge with you and not with the people here. And even if I tell you now, you don't have any solution to deal with this problem. Eternal peace is bound to be eradicated sooner or later. And also, before I leave, I wanted to fulfill a wish of mine. Qin Mu said with a smile, I'm afraid you can't fulfill this wish. When experts fight, first aim for the heart. THG smiled and said, I had just let out such an astonishing secret, and I have already shaken your Dao heart. Your abilities and mine aren't far apart, and if your Dao heart is shaken, I will have the confidence to defeat you. Qin Mu replied leisurely, with the information you have told me, I can spare you your life. Come. THG had a smile on his face, but his gaze was very cold. His aura reached its peak in that instant. His fighting spirit overflowed into the sky. For a very long time, for about 2 to 3 years, he had always been looking for a chance to be able to defeat Qin Mu perfectly. He was a child favored by heaven, and he had the bloodline of Southern Heaven Red Deity. He was a young talent that possessed 2 Emperor's Throne techniques, and he carried his dreams and ambitions to the lower bound. Yet when he had just arrived in the lower bound, he got beaten up by Qin Mu and Zhehwali together. Afterward, he was defeated by Qin Mu in a one-on-one match. Suffering 2 defeats was extraordinarily shameful and humiliating. He had messed up Qin Mu's Dao heart though, and it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He waited for the chance and created it. People who learn from me live. People who imitate me die. Qin Mu made the dragon Qilin fall back and said seriously, when experts fight, first aim for the heart. I am skilled in striking on my opponent's Dao heart after all. You, Jawali, Shu Xinghua, and Grandmaster are all people who could live after experiencing my beat down. All of you are talents, and I've seen you guys grow. However, there's one place where you're wrong. When you didn't make your move instantly and imitated the art of how I strike at the heart, you were doomed to lose. That's because I'm even more skilled than you in this field. Flames poured out around Qi Jui's body and transformed into the apparition of a phoenix perching on an ancient parasol tree. He tried his best to not listen to his words and sneered. Your techniques and divine arts will never be on par with the Emperor's throne technique of my Qi family. One great divine art of mine can fight 3 of your moves. The speed of his divine art execution became faster and faster, growing much quicker than before. It was obvious after Qin Mu defeated him that he had learned from his defeat and worked hard on cultivating, thus he had another astonishing improvement. Emperor's throne technique was a profound mystery, and it was like the divine arts practitioners of eternal peace cultivating. The comprehension of every step required one to continuously grind and discern, entering the state of comprehension by opportunity and chance. Even the saints that appeared once every 500 years like eternal peace imperial preceptor required dozens to 100 years of his accumulation to comprehend his own Dao sword. He even needed the guidance from the previous sword god village chief to enter the realm of the path in one go, achieving cultivation in the sword path that even Qin Mu had no hope of catching. People who comprehended the realm of the path in disabled elderly village like butcher, blind, and deaf all had astonishing attainments in their own realm of the path. That was something that they had worked on throughout their life, and they had experienced countless obstructions, torture, and setback. They were down on their luck their whole lives and only then could they reach the top in the realm of the path. Even the setbacks faced by an overlord body like Qin Mu were unimaginable when he was stepping into the gate of sword path. First ancestor human emperor shattered the bones in hall of human emperors, destroying the ultimate arts of the past human emperors. He then beat Qin Mu up badly and beat him down in corporeal body, spirit, Dao heart, and skills and forced Qin Mu to kneel in the mud to look at second ancestor's corpse being destroyed helplessly. That fight had nearly crushed Qin Mu entirely, and only then was there teleporting to Supreme Emperor Heaven, fights on the battlefield, and comprehending the path in Li City. The blood, sweat, and tears behind his hard work was something others wouldn't know. Meanwhile, Qi Jui, who cultivated Emperor's throne technique, lived in the celestial heavens, and had the guidance of Southern Heaven Red Deity. He then learned under Mingju Black Deity, and cultivated 2 great Emperor's throne techniques. Emperor's throne techniques were broad and deep, having an ability to allow people to comprehend the path and reach the top. There was no need for them to go through those kinds of hardships like Imperial Preceptor, Butcher, and Blind had gone through. There was also no need to experience the setbacks they had experienced. Qi Jui's cultivation was smooth sailing, but because of that, the kind of forcefully raised realm lacked very much. Qi Jui always thought he was invincible on the same realm, and he could rank in the top 10. That was until he met Qin Mu, the country bumpkin that was rolling in the dirt of the lower bound. After being defeated twice in the hands of Qin Mu, he realized he was lacking. The comprehension of the path that relied on an emperor's throne technique wasn't his, and it wasn't as etched into his memory. From that day onwards, he always walked on the path of his comprehension, and that was why he had improved so much. On the ancient parasol tree behind him, a 9-headed phoenix flapped its wings to circle the parasol tree. In the phoenix's nest, there was a phoenix egg that was breaking open. Another small 9-headed phoenix flapped its tender wings, and started to drink the dew and absorb the phoenix flames to grow up quickly. It flapped its wings to fly up again. Qin Mu raised his eyebrows, and in that short while, 16 nine-headed phoenixes flew out of the nest. The phoenixes dragged along long and gorgeous feathers to fly around him. The nine-headed phoenixes cried out and gave off waves of clear Tao voices from their beaks. He stood there, and in a radius of over 10 miles, huge nine-headed phoenixes flew across one another and formed a marvelous formation. In the formation, THG stood opposite him with an ancient parasol tree behind him. The flaming tree behind him bloomed, and the flowers on the parasol tree were like small trumpets that were brightly colored. The clouds of flames that were floating among the branches were also bringing along a marvelous rhythm. The youth below the tree had an aura that made people unable to approach him. Qin Mu felt a slight regret. He shouldn't have given THG the time and chance to execute his great divine art. THG was much stronger than the previous time they had fought. By giving him that chance, he had landed into a passive situation. It was obvious that THG's great divine art, phoenix perching on parasol tree, had entered another marvelous realm which had patched what he lacked. Suddenly, the nine-headed phoenixes gave off incomparably sharp cries as they swooped towards Qin Mu. At the same time, THG slowly shifted under the tree, but his gaze always stared at Qin Mu, who was being pounced on by the phoenixes. Qin Mu stood on the original spot and didn't move at all. Instead, he revealed a three-headed and six-armed form, which defended against the nine-headed phoenixes that were swooping in all directions. What he had executed was first ancestor human emperor's heaven and earth mudra skills, and he blocked down the 16 nine-headed phoenixes that were attacking him. He was unharmed. Standing in between heaven and earth, first ancestor human emperor's mudra skills turned himself as the heart of heaven and earth, and it was the most effective method he had at that time. THG's footsteps moved, and the mist behind him was vast. A nine-headed phoenix popped its head out from the mist and stared at Qin Mu to search for his opening. The mudra skill in his hands was changing continuously, and the divine art that had formed the ancient parasol tree was also having slight changes. He was calculating the opening in Qin Mu's moves and divine art. Suddenly, THG's eyes lit up, and he drew a circle with his right hand. The mudra on his left hand penetrated through the circle and smacked towards Qin Mu. And at that moment, 16 nine-headed phoenixes pounced at Qin Mu to drown him out. How intense were the attacks from 16 nine-headed phoenixes! In an instant, the feathers of the 9 phoenixes were like swords, the phoenix claws were like hooks, the phoenix beaks were like spears, and they were like tens of thousands of spirit weapons attacking Qin Mu at the same time. In addition to that, incomparably intense phoenix flames were incinerating everything. Where Qin Mu stood was like a sea of fire, and also the center of a world-shaking explosion. The terrifying air currents swept in all directions. Where the air currents flowed past, mountain rocks floated in the sky before shattering, melting and finally vaporizing. The flames formed a circular ring that gave off an incomparably bright light, which flooded into the surroundings. It swept everything in its path, and its power only dropped after expanding 50 miles. In the explosion, incomparably bright sword lights suddenly appeared and pierced through the heads of the phoenixes, slashing across their necks, shaving off their wings, chopping off the phoenix feathers, and hacking away the phoenix claws. Brother Qin, your great divine art is already released, you're no longer my match. THG laughed loudly, and his palm force pierced through the center of the explosion, going straight for the back of Qin Mu's heart. Qin Mu turned his head back and struck out with his palm. He was still 100 yards away when both of their palm force exploded. THG's palm force was like bridge of phoenix feathers, and countless phoenix feathers that were like swords formed a bridge. The speed of the sword feathers stabbing forward was too fast and as a result, gave off the illusion of a flying bridge. Qin Mu's palm force formed a path of crystals, which struck THG's palm force. The force spat out countless crystals, which grew and expanded out in all directions. The structures of the crystals were as different as they could be, and the flames inside the crystals suddenly burst forth. That was the heavenly fire and a divine art from the great Tao of heavenly fire. It was a fire that was even more terrifying, that phoenix fire, and it just incinerated the terrifying power that was hidden inside Qi Jui's sword feathers, as it rushed straight at Qi Jui. Qi Jui's expression changed drastically, and the ancient parasol tree behind him floated forward. Hugging the ancient parasol tree with both arms, he bellowed and used the ancient parasol tree as a weapon to smash down on the great Tao of heavenly fire. Boom! The palm force of the two people collided with the ancient tree, and even though its power wasn't as terrifying, exploding in a small area caused its power to be a cut higher. The mountain rock below their feet completely melted and the power of both their divine arts pressured down on them until they were incomparably heavy. The dragon Qin looked at the battle from far away, and carried a huge sword pellet on his back. He thought to himself, Cult Master doesn't have a spirit weapon on hand, he's probably going to be at a disadvantage. This sword pellet is too heavy, should I put it down first? As he thought until there, a world-shattering explosion rang out, and the ground trembled continuously. Next, Qin Mu and Qi Jui's body vanished. When the aftershock from their clash had dissipated, the dragon Qin immediately saw a huge pit. The huge hole roughly had a radius of 300 yards, and it was so deep that he couldn't see the bottom. The dragon Qin immediately ran over and popped his head over the hole to look down. He saw that the huge hole didn't look like it was blown out from their divine arts. Instead, the center of the underground was empty as though it had crumbled from their stomp. This looks like the underground space of God-broken mountain range. There are still chains there, and a long knife sealed there. The dragon Qin pondered and he walked into the underground space unwillingly. When they were attacking high heavens, Qin Mu and the rest had discovered all kinds of unbelievable sights in the underground space of God-broken mountain range. The underground space of God-broken mountain range was peculiar, and not only was there a long knife stretching across from south to north, but there was also a shrine and chains that were suppressing the long knife. What was even weirder was there seemed to be a stone statue from eternal peace that had tunneled its way there, and in the end, its head got stuck under the long knife. Furthermore, Imperial Preceptor also used Earthquake Cauldron to shatter the space, and as a result, the vision of being connected with another devil world had appeared. The strangest thing about the knife was that the line was exactly the line of separation between the Great Ruins and eternal peace. This concerns my meals. I can't not go, in case Cult Master meets danger. The dragon Qin jumped down, and Qin flames floated out from his feet to lift him up. He flew into the underground space. In the space underground, incomparably thick and huge chains were locked onto that astonishing long knife. Looking down at the blade, the head of one majestic god was stuck on the blade. Not far away, there was also a shrine floating under the blade. The dragon Qin looked around, and he finally found both of them. They were standing on the surface of the knife and chasing after each other's life. The surface of the knife was as bright a mirror, and no flaws could be seen. Both of their figures reflected on the body of the knife, and they were extremely clean. It was like there were two Qin Mu and two Qi Jui fighting. The surface of the knife was so smooth, and both of them were like reflections in the water. Even though their battle was very intense, there was no ripple on the surface of the knife at all. Qi Jui revealed his body of the 9-headed phoenix. He had a human body and 9 phoenix heads, while Qin Mu had 3 heads and 6 arms. Each had their own unique points, and as they were fighting close quarters, their divine arts were different from the collision before. Each strike hit true to the corporeal body, and they were pounding each other up. Suddenly, the dragon Qin noticed something strange. The knife no longer reflected their figures, and instead, it reflected a 9-headed phoenix, and Qin Mu's primordial spirit. Qin Mu and THG's primordial spirits got sucked into the divine knife unknowingly, and they were fighting inside the knife. I knew this place was extremely strange. The dragon Qin rushed forward and was planning to rescue Qin Mu. Suddenly, he lowered his head and saw the surface of the knife and was slightly stunned. There was another dragon Qin in the clear mirror, and it looked imposing and strong. The dragon Qin felt his blood run cold, because he was looking at the corporeal body through his primordial spirit. My primordial spirit has also been pulled into the mirror. The four legs of the dragon Qin pushed around, and it felt as if he had stepped on the mirror surface, yet it also felt as if he wasn't stepping on anything. He was filled with fear. It's haunted. Before he could finish, both THG coughed up blood and tumbled several rounds as he came crashing over, landing at the dragon Qilin's feet. One landed in front of the true body of the dragon Qin, while another landed in front of the primordial spirit of the dragon Qin. The dragon Qin raised his head and saw two Qin Mu that reflected each other walking over. He stopped in front of THG, who had collapsed and couldn't get up. Part 263. Brother Qi, I told you I would spare your life, so I really won't take your life. Both Qin Mu lowered their heads at the same time, as he looked at THG, who was struggling to get up and fight again. He said firmly, the information that you leaked is beneficial to me, and it's worth your life. THG still couldn't stand, so he struggled to sit up. 257. He scorned himself as he gasped heavily flying over and formed a huge shield in front of use that information to crush your had a perfect arc. Never would I expect that the most powerful would save my life with the least amount of pressure. He had a feeling that whatever he had done was knelt on one knee with one arm blocking the back of the shield and continued. It was the best pose to welcome the impact. I will return to the celestial heavens and cultivate threads of vital Qi came out from his primordial spirit beings and poured into the shield, strengthening the structure of the shield. Don't fall behind me. The flying swords on the surface of the shield were locked together with the structure of the surroundings with doubt. He could use that kind of structure to endure the strongest impact. You might not be able to leave eternal peace. All kinds of defensive runes also appeared on the shield. Even I might be trapped here, and those were the runes of the black tortoise. THG was slightly stunned. The surface of the shield had the vein lines of tortoise burned through, and on the borders of the shields were the markings of the flying serpent. He had already noticed a strange sight in the underground space of the God-broken mountain range. The impact from heavenly funeral bell came blasting over, caught up, and there was no loud ringing that he didn't have the time to examine his surroundings properly. And Qin Mu couldn't feel any terrifying impact. Only when Qin Mu made clear that he would uphold his promise and not kill him to have suffered a huge blow as it was blown out of sight. This heavenly funeral bell was a sacrificial altar which should have been constructed by the devil race, and there were numerous sacrificial runes from the devil race, and his primordial spirit returned quickly. There was once a blood sacrifice there, the speed of a primordial spirit was unknown was the fastest speed in the world. And even if there was still over 10,000 miles away, all over the sacrificial altar, he just needed an instant to return. They were on the surface of the knife. The only problem was that Qin Mu didn't know if his primordial spirit could handle the blade of the knife from was very long as the handle and tip of the knife. He didn't know much about the divine arts of Mingju. Furthermore, and had only seen them on Lu was that their primordial spirits, including the primordial spirit of the dragon Qin, one who had just arrived, died. Had all so he didn't get the chance seemed to have no Mingju's techniques and divine arts. There seemed to be a vast space just inside the primordial spirit, as though there was another world. The second wave of impact from the heavenly funeral bell followed closely, but he realized that there was a world even further away and his primordial spirit. Yet Qin Mu's corporeal body could still feel primordial spirit. He couldn't pull it back. This heavenly funeral bell has strong sweat power, couldn't help breaking out on his forehead against the primordial spirit Brother or Qin. Soul. What is going on? In that case, Qin Mu didn't reply to him, consciousness and his expression body became grimmer and the shield suddenly disassembled. He had long seen the moment the shield broke where the knife was during the battle had already transformed into a three-headed and six-armed mountain range was raised to the ground. His 6 arms grabbed and the battle was extremely bitter. Swords that had transformed into 6 divine knives, and among the 5 immortals of the demon race, towards the front of the heavenly funeral bell, white immortal and yellow immortal like a fierce tiger that had entered a flock of lambs. Old Rulai, his 6 divine knives swung up and down, young patriarch, severing the heads of the people from their bodies, and Xian Xingwu had also died in battle cutting while the others received and he executed Butcher's 9 skills of heaven knife to his and the rest had also died. and
the
it
9
was
skills
Qin Mu
of heaven
who
knife
had seized their
from
souls
midnight
back
to battle
across
across
stormy cities.
In that battle,
sun on east
high
sea
heavens
thousands
was
layers
beaten
waved
until
long
they could
knife
no longer
hangs
fight
below the
eternal
moonlight
peace anymore.
Among the stars the
At
heavenly
that time,
horses,
Butcher
every
and
knife
the rest
skill was
discovered the
intricate
knife
and
that was
impressive.
under the God-broken
The
mountain
knife light
range
was like wind
as
and
well
rain,
as that devil
sea
god
and
stone
waves.
statue that was under the
It
knife.
was hanging below the moonlight,
The stone statue
and was like
that
the
had
heavenly
tunneled out
horses
under the
among
knife
stars.
was a terrifying devil
In
god
addition to
that was the
crimson
old
light era's
ancestor of a
strongest
devil
creation,
world.
divine art.
When he had
Having
descended
3
onto
heads
eternal
and
peace,
3 arms allowed
he was
him
careless
to look
and
around
tunneled out
and for his
under the
attacks
knife
have no
landed
blind
in a
spots at
precarious
all.
situation that
It was
concerned
like
his
3
life
Qin
and
Mu
death.
killing their way into the
Eternal
flock of
Peace
lambs.
Imperial Preceptor
Suddenly,
had used
the
earthquake
knife lights
cauldron to
pulled
crumble
back,
the world
and
barrier
his 6
between
arms
eternal
raised high
peace
up
and the other world.
The 6 knives
and that
collided
world was
together
none
to
other than the devil
transform
world
into a
where the
single
devil
long
ancestor
knife,
resided,
which slashed down with his
numerous
6
devil
arms.
gods transformed
Kai,
into stone statues.
the knife
to enter the
light was
God-broken
breathtaking
mountain range
and split apart
and
the
they
door of the
searched for the
palace
knife
wall.
as they planned
The
to
door
rescue
split
their
and
old
flew
ancestor.
towards both sides,
Finally,
opening up the
the
hall.
blood sacrifice of the
Meanwhile,
devil race in that
corpses
world
fell
was
from his
intercepted
front,
by Qin
back,
Mu using
left,
mirror
and
images.
right.
All
The
of them
revival of the
collapsed
devil
one
god
after
stone
another,
statue had
and no
failed,
one could
and
stand
so
up anymore.
all of them crawled back into
His
the ground
primordial
and
spirit
vanished.
flew back, and
Qin
it
Mu
landed
had
behind
once
his back.
suspected
That the world was lawful
Qin Mu
heaven,
rubbed his 6
but after he
arms
saw
gently
lawful heaven
and the long
he
knife
realized his guess was
into
wrong.
a sword pellet to
The
float
world
in
which
front
the
of the
devil
heart
god
of his
stone
brows.
statue came from was
He
on a much
paused in
higher
his
class
footsteps
that lawful
and his
heaven.
vital chi
It
swept
should be
up
a
the
devil
small
world
case
that
into
was under
his
the
hands.
celestial heavens. Only then did he
The power
walk
of
into
Luofu
the hall. Heaven was far inferior
Clang.
to that devil world.
The heavenly funeral bell
As for the
behind
long
him
knife,
fell to the ground.
none of them
and rolled
could
down
even
the
move
steps,
it back then,
giving off more loud
Furthermore,
ringing.
the long
In
knife
the hall,
looked like a treasure
devil
left
god
behind
cloaked
from
in
a
a founding
black cape
emperor
sat
era
straight
for
on
blocking
his
the
throne.
darkness of the great
He had
ruins
2
from
curved
invading
and
eternal
long
peace.
scarlet horns on
Thus,
his head.
no one
and his
touched the
eyes
knife.
were like the eyes of a human.
Back then,
the primordial
devil
spirits
god of
held
Granny
onto
Sai
a
and the
book
rest,
and was studying,
as well as the primordial
Qin Mu
spirits of the
carried
gods
his
of
small
high
case
heavens
and walked
had
over.
fallen into the space
The small
inside the
case
knife.
clacked and a small slit
Luckily for
opened
them,
up. Fengdu had passed
devil
by the
god
place at the
placed
right
down the
time,
book
and
is
so
his hands
the
and
primordial
looked at
spirits
him.
of Granny Sai and
He
the rest
chuckled and
managed
said,
to fly out
"It's
of the
been a
knife
long time
and return
since
to their
anyone
corporeal
has come
body
into
while being
heaven
in
in
a
a day."
world. The
Only
last
then
time
did
they not
anyone
lose
came
their
in
lives
was
20,000 years ago.
Qin
Mu's primordial spirit
founding
looked
emperor
out
didn't
and
know
saw
the
his
immensity
corporeal
of
heaven
body.
and earth. If he
So he
wanted
ordered
to save
gods
his
to
primordial
investigate this
spirit,
place.
he would probably have
Now
to wait
you are
for
here.
Fengdu to pass by again.
Could some impudent fool
However,
in the outside
even
world
though
wish
he had
to
gone to
overturn
Fengdu
the
numerous
heaven?
times,
Qin
he had
Mu
only
carried
been
to
to the
the
first
city
city
of
of Fengdu.
He hadn't been to the other cities
of
founding
Fengdu,
emperor,
and King
Qin
Yama
Fengqing
didn't open those
pays
cities
my
for
respect
touring
to
either.
senior of Mingju.
There were still many
So you are a
mysteries in
descendant of
Fengdu.
founding emperor.
The
You are
crucial
still young.
point was how they were
The
going to
devil
leave
god
the
said
inside
with a
of the
smile,
knife. Is founding emperor
The world
dead?
inside the knife
If
was
he
vast,
isn't, he will
and it
tell
was
you
like
never
2
to reveal
pieces
your
of
true name
incomplete
to
clear,
others, and bright
especially
mirror
to a
stretching
person of
across the
Mingju.
void. Trapping
Even
them in
though
the
you
center
have
of
some
the 2
abilities,
bright mirrors
you are
that
still
had no
too
thickness. Do you know
The
who
end
am I?
couldn't be seen.
He stood up,
Their
and
corporeal
his tall
bodies
and
gazed
sturdy
at their
body
primordial
was even
spirits
taller than
from
Qin
across the
Mu's
mirror.
primordial spirit that was
Even though
over
it
30
looked like
yards
the
tall.
primordial spirits was
The
stepping on the
surname
souls of the
Kuei is a
corporeal
big
bodies.
surname in Mingju
They could
that
never
has given
return
birth
into
to
many
many
corporeal
gods,
bodies.
and my surname is
When
none
will
other than
Fengdu move
Kuei.
to this place?
His voice was
I've heard
extremely
Sister Jing
loud.
says,
The previous
name
time
in
Yudu
religion
had
is
invaded,
Kuei Wutsu.
King Yama led the gods of
Of
Fengdu
course,
to defend
this
against
name is
Yudu,
also fake,
and that was why they had come to the
However,
God-broken
many
mountain
people
range.
still
call me King Wutsu. King Yama
Qin
probably
Mu's
doesn't
heart
know I'm
stirred
trapped
slightly,
here, and he asked.
Qin Mu
I
frowned,
met 2
and
gods
his
that had
primordial
the surname
spirit was
Kuei.
trapped there.
One called Shaman God
He couldn't
Kuei.
use his
One of
secrets
them
of
called
3
Kuei
primordial
Qingpei.
spirit assembly.
May I know
so
if they
he
have
couldn't
any
contact
relation with
Sai
Xin
Yin.
Xiang and Ling Yuxiu?
Kuei Qingpei
is the
if they
disciple
didn't
of
know
His
about
Majesty.
it,
King
and
Yama
is an
wouldn't be
outstanding
able to
talent
help in our Kuei family.
No one will know
The
even
devil
if
god
we die
Kuei
inside
Wutsu
the
said
space
with
of
a
the
smile.
knife.
Meanwhile, Shaman
He
God
composed
Kuei
himself
is my disciple.
and took a step
He was
forward
placed
into
in
the
the
depths
depths
of the
by the
knife.
celestial heavens,
Qi
and he
Jui
learned
recovered slightly. You
and
are
his
still
primordial
alive
spirit
after meeting
struggled
them
to get up to
so you
follow
have some
Qin Mu.
methods. The dragon
However,
Qin
since
also
you have
hurried
seen
to
Shaman
follow.
God Kuei,
You
Qin
should
Mu
know he is
examined the
learning
mirror
from
below
and
his
know how
feet,
dangerous
and the
it is
mirror
to
above
reveal
his
your
head,
true name in
but
front
couldn't
of me.
see any signs that they were
Qin Mu's
forged.
expression was ashen,
He couldn't
and he
see
raised
what the
his
knife
small
was
case.
forged from and what method
Wu
was
Tzu
used to
said with a
forge it.
smile, "It's useless."
With his standard as a great
Even
master
though the
in
god
forging,
execution
he
mysterious
actually
knife
couldn't
is
infer
powerful,
anything at all.
and I'm far inferior.
One had
Your
to
god
know that
execution
Newton was the
mysterious
senior
knife
in the path
can
of
never hit
forging
me
it,
at
and
all.
Qin Mu learned under Newt.
Actually, When you were dealing
His
with the
skills in
gods of
forging
Mingju
were
just
number
now,
2 in the world.
I had already
and if
seen
even
the flaw
he couldn't
in God
see any
execution
traces from
mysterious
it,
knife.
other people could forget about
You had
trying.
used the knife to kill numerous gods under me,
with his eyes
but
wide
you had
open,
never used this
and
knife
suddenly
to deal
revealed
with the
his
divine
9 heads
arts
to look
practitioners
around.
hiding in Mingju. He turned to spew
When you meet
phoenix
divine
flames
arts
to burn both
practitioners,
sides of the
you
mirror,
always used
and
your
didn't
flying
even
sword
manage
to
to
kill
make
them.
them red hot.
What does that mean?
There were no signs of the
He
mirror
couldn't
melting.
resist laughing out.
Is this place still
The
the
god
lower
execution
bound?
mysterious knife
Qi
laughed
from extreme anger.
Qin
Is
Mu's
there such a
expression was
powerful
gravely
thing in the
white,
lower bound, and there was no hint of
Could the
blood
country,
at all? People of the
King
lower
Wu
bound have
was
such
very
powerful
satisfied
standard of
and said
forging.
leisurely,
When I saw
"Country
you killing my
bumpkins of the
subordinates,
celestial heavens,
why didn't
no
I
knowledge
show
at all?"
myself?
The
Now
dragon
I can tell
Qin
you.
rolled his eyes at him.
I am afraid of the god
Qi
execution
was
mysterious
furious.
knife. As a child
The head of a
blessed
strong
by the heavens
practitioner
and
of
the celestial
celestial
heavens and
his
the
gaze is
disciples
like
of
2
knives,
emperors' thrones,
and that head
he
drinks
was
blood.
actually being held in
He has
contempt
killed
by that
countless
fellow.
gods, and I
Qin
won't
Mu
make a move
also
unless
tried
I
to
see
use his
through it.
heavenly fire divine
However,
art to melt the
the
mirror,
god execution
but just
god
like
knife
Qi
has already been
there was
seen
nothing
through by
done,
me, and you can't
There
hurt
should
me
be an
at all.
end to this world, right?
Qin Mu was disappointed and
They
muttered.
continued forward,
You could
and what
actually see
disappointed
me
them
kill your
was that no
subordinates
matter how
and
far
resist
they walked
yourself
out
from making a
there
move.
were always
You
2
are
fat
so
mirrors
ruthless.
in front of them that seemed
Wu Tzu
boundless.
had his hands behind his
It was
back,
unknown how
and he
far
said
they
with a
had
smile,
walked,
"You are
but they
too
had
young
walked until
little
they were
brat."
in despair.
What has
They
their death
walked
got to
until
do
the
with
dragon
me?
Qin didn't
Anyway,
want to walk anymore,
even after they
and was
die,
only
they
willing
can
to
still
lay down
resurrect
on the ground.
in Mingju.
Only
Mu pulled
those
his
ill-fated
tail with
ones
one hand
that had
and
their
dragged him
primordial
to continue
spirit
forward,
and soul sucked away.
The mirror
by that
was very
divine
slippery,
knife are completely
so
dead.
he didn't have to spend
However,
much energy.
what does that have to do with me?
Qijui's gaze was blank.
Since you know
and
my
he
disciple,
followed behind the
Shaman
dragon
God
Qin.
Kuei, don't
He
you
could
want
only
to see
see
the
even
even
more
more
powerful
powerful ultimate
and the
arts?
entire body of the dragon
Qin
Qin
Mu's
slumped on the
complexion
mirror.
was horrifyingly pale.
He just
and
let
he
himself
said in a hurry,
get pulled
Senior,
by Qin Mu
wait
with
a
his
moment.
lifeless eyes.
Senior,
It's impossible
don't you
that
want
it's
to know my
endless.
motive for coming to Heavenly
Qi
Yin
Jui
world?
revealed a miserable smile
Wu
and
Tzu
said,
turned his
"We
head,
have already been
and his
walking
horns
for
made
2
him
years,
look like a
right?
mountain goat.
There's still
He
no
said
end.
with a smile, "All right
Let's
then.
not talk about a small
Since
place
I rarely
like the
meet
inside
any
of this
outsider
knife,
while I'm on
2
duty
years
here,
is already enough
I shall
from
give you
us
some
to walk
time.
from one end of the celestial
Tell me your
heavens
motive.
to the other, right?"
Qin Mu put on a
Qin
serious
Mu
face
didn't
and said,
reply.
"I'm here to
He
find
just
Goddess
set his
of
sights
Heavenly
on
Yin,
one direction,
Goddess
and
of
continued
Heavenly
walking
Yin."
forward.
Wu Tzu
2
seemed
years,
to hear the
our
most
corporeal
laughable thing
bodies
and
have
replied
already
while
died,
laughing,
right?
Goddess of Heavenly Yin
Qi
was
had
eaten
signs
tens
of
of
breaking
thousands
down
of years ago
and laughed hysterically.
and only the skin of the goddess
Our
is left.
corporeal bodies outside
What
the
have you
knife
come to
must
find
have
her
already
for?
rotted,
And
what
there must
can you
be
do
flies
after
hovering
finding
around
her?
us while maggots feast
Use the
on our
skin
flesh
as
and
an
blood.
offering to me.
Our bodies
Qin
are
Mu's expression
definitely
dimmed,
giving a foul
and he
smell.
muttered,
"Goddess of
"Shut
Heavenly
up."
Yin is dead."
Qin Mu shouted
could
with
this
a grim
be?
expression.
Impossible.
The dragon Qin opened
No.
up his eyes in a daze
It's
and said
impossible.
weakly,
Shut up.
"Goddess of Heavenly
Nine-headed
Yin
bird man
is a sacred god born by
Qi
nature,
Jui was
who can
furious
kill
and
her.
sneered.
You must be
You
lying
master
to me.
and servant only knows
I don't
how to
believe
bully
you.
me.
Don't you
forget,
burst out
both
into
of you are
laughter
like
and said,
me.
"You
Her
have
skin
both
is
been
suppressed
dead
for
for
2
2
years. Do you want me to summon her to show you?
In this strange world,
I don't
no
believe
matter
you.
if you are
You
the
must be
descendants
lying
of
to me.
celestial heavens aristocrats.
Qin Mu had a blank
Even
look
if you
in
are
his
the
eyes
emperor
as he
of the
muttered,
mortal,
"You must be
everyone
lying
is
to
trapped
me.
here until they die.
I'm here on
until
orders
our
to form an
primordial spirit
alliance
gets
with
whittled
Goddess
away.
of Heavenly Yin. I shouldn't have listened
She is
to
a
old
natural
man
born
black
god,
deity,
the master
and
of
come to
Heavenly
descend
Yin
calamity
world.
for eternal peace.
She's incomparably powerful.
I shouldn't have come
She
to this
couldn't have
broken
died.
place to
She
capture
couldn't
you.
have.
Wu Tzu walked
King
beside
Mingju,
him and
F
said leisurely,
King Black
killing someone
deity.
by crushing their heart.
He cursed non-stop.
I love to see an
and the state of
insufferably
his
arrogant
psyche
brat
had
like
completely
you breaking
broken
down.
Let
Qin
me
Mu was
enlighten
affected
you
by
before
his
your
negativity,
and his
Follow
psyche
me.
was also showing
I
signs
shall
of
summon
breaking
Goddess
down.
of Heavenly Yin for you
He
to
couldn't
take a
help
look.
thinking of evil thoughts.
Qin Mu followed him in
I should
disappointment.
first kill Qi.
His
This fellow
footsteps
who
were
can't
uneven,
stop talking,
and he almost tripped on
right
the
at
corpses
that
on the
moment.
ground. The 2 layers of
He had
mirrors
to
in
stumble
front suddenly
forward to
broke
keep
off.
King
Qin
Wu
Mu was
came
stunned
to the
and
seaside,
suddenly stopped,
and the grey sea suddenly
he
became
stared at the
full of
broken mirror
violent waves,
blankly, and saw a
the
dark
activities
space
in
where
the
the
sea
mirror
grew
had
more
broken
and more
off.
intense. There was no
After
After a
above
moment,
and earth
an
below.
incomparably majestic goddess
There was only
rose
a
up
step
from the
made
sea.
of white jade slabs.
The corporeal body
and it
of
was
the
laid
goddess
out
was
regularly
vast,
into the
but
darkness,
she seemed not to be
stretching
wearing
into
any
the
clothing.
depths of the darkness.
Instead, he
She
couldn't
used a
see where
rainbow
the
as
steps
her
led.
clothes.
There's a
Qin Mu
road.
raised his head,
Qin
and
Mu
seemed to be
cried
slightly
from happiness,
hopeful, and swung the dragon
He shouted,
Qin to
"Goddess,
smash him
you are
ruthlessly
still alive."
on the ground, before swinging
Goddess,
him up and
I'm here
smashing
on an
him
order
down
to
once
form an
more.
alliance with you.
He said with a
Goddess,
smile, "Fatty
please
dragon,
kill this scoundrel."
quickly wake up.
Wuxiu
There's a
laughed
road
and seemed rather happy.
The dragon Qin
You
was
can't
giddy
see
from
through
Qin Mu
this,
swinging
right?
him around and hurriedly
Goddess
said,
of heavenly
I'm
yin
awake.
doesn't look like
I'm awake.
she's just skin.
But
Qin
she's
Mu threw
actually
him to
empty
one
on the
side
inside.
and looked at Qi.
Her body is filled
You
with
can be
black
happy
sand and
if you
those
want to,
souls
but
that
don't
shattered.
try to swing me around.
She's not herself anymore.
The dragon Qin
and
crawled
only
up
skin
and
remains
shook
of
his
her
body.
corporeal body.
He looked at the
Her
road
primordial
paved by the
spirit
white jade
doesn't
slabs
even
and
exist
asked in
anymore.
glee,
Cult master,
she is already
can
a
we
starved
finally
corpse.
go out?
He
The
turned
two
around
humans
and revealed a
beasts were
peculiar
delighted
smile.
and ran barefooted on the stone
Now,
slabs.
you can die.
Sprinting down into
Qin
the
Mu
darkness
did a final struggle
as though they were
by
flying.
opening the small case.
3 months later,
Two blood
Qin
light
Mu's
flashed
eyes were
towards
lifeless
Wuxiu.
as he dragged the dragon Qin
Wuxiu
to land
laughed
weakly
and
on
his
another
body
step.
vanished into the darkness
Qi
as
though
though
formed
behind
by
them
countless
and jumped
grains of
over.
black sand.
Next,
The
he
two
sprawled
lights streaked
himself
across
out on
his
the
body,
dragon Qilin's
but he was
head
still
and turned
unharmed.
limp. As
Qin Mu
expected,
pulled along the
divine
dragon
arts
Qilin's
of
tail
Mingju can
and threw
indeed
them
counter
forward,
the god
making the
execution
dragon
mysterious
Qin
knife
and Qi to land on the
Wuxiu
next
smiled.
stone stab together.
The two blood lights
He
circled
jumped
around
over
him
and grabbed
but no
Qi
matter fast
by
they
the
were,
collar. They could never hit
he
his
raised
true
his
form.
fist to start beating
I'm
him,
done playing.
and Qi didn't fight
Let me
back.
send you guys off.
He just let Qin Mu's
Wuxiu
fist
bowed
fall on
towards
his
Qin
beautiful
Mu
face
while he was
and
in
said
Mingju
weakly,
and said with a
just
smile,
beat me up however
I
you
can
like.
worship you to death.
Just beat me to death.
Even if there's a world
After
between
two
us,
punches,
I can
Qin
still
Mu
do it.
had no more interest to
Qin
continue
phoned
beating
Qin.
him up.
Take a bow from
So
me.
he just threw him to one
With
side.
the bow, Qin Mu's
Qi
mind was
laid
blown,
on the stone
and his
slab
world started
and
spinning.
was just sprawled out on
in
his
the
back.
next moment, he was
The
in
dragon
front of a
Qin
large
sat
devil
up
god
with a blurred face.
The devil
and
god
sat
had
Qi
horns on
under
its
him.
head and hooves on its
He
feet.
opened his eyes and licked
Devil
his lips.
flames burned around its body,
Scarlet fire
and it was
spirit
none
pills
other than
have the
Wuxiu's
best flavor.
primordial spirit.
I had a dream
It
that
stretched
Cult
out its
Master
hand
made
to grab
numerous
him.
scarlet fire spirit
Before he
pills
could
for me.
even grab him,
A whole
his gaze
world
suddenly
filled with
became
spirit
blank,
pills.
and he looked behind
I ran
Qin
and
Mu
ran,
foolishly.
but no matter how
In
much
the darkness
I ran,
behind
I
Qin
could never
Mu,
reach the end.
3 eyes suddenly split
I
apart
rolled
in
around
the
in
darkness,
the sea of spirit
and they
pills
flashed
happily
with a strange
and
light
swam
that
inside
had the
the
shape
sea
of a
spirit
butterfly's
pills.
wings.
Cult
Next,
Master,
the
there
face
is a
of the
door
chubby
in
baby
front.
gradually appeared from
Qin
the darkness.
Mu looked over
and couldn't
This
help
is
crying from happiness.
He was dumbfounded.
Brother Qi, there's a
Two
door.
Qin
There's a door.
phoned.
The
Qi
fluster
was
on
squashed
Qin Mu's
under the
face
dragon
had long
Qilins,
vanished,
but
and
only
replacing it
half
was a
of his
calm
legs
expression
were
revealed on the outside.
King Wuxiu,
He
come
kicked
meet
his
my
legs,
older brother.
but he couldn't crawl out,
Wuxiu
so he
felt
grunted.
his blood run cold.
What are you saying? He was incomparably
I
huge
can't
in
hear
front
you.
of Qin Mu,
Stop disturbing
but in
me.
front of the chubby baby's
Qin
face,
Mu was
he
delighted
was
and
pitifully
sprinted
small.
straight for the door.
The chubby
and the
baby
dragon
stretched
Qilin's
his hand
also
to grab
stood up
him,
in a hurry.
and even with his remarkable
ran
abilities,
over while crying
he couldn't
tears of
break
joy.
free.
The
The
baby
baby
put
sat
him
up,
into his
and
mouth.
the plumes on the back of his
My
head
old
were all
brother
crooked.
and I share a name.
He said weakly,
Before
what
he
were
died,
you saying? He heard Qin Mu's voice.
there's a door.
That's because we
Qi
share a
cried
soul,
from joy,
and we share
and
a
the smile
corporeal
on his
body.
face spread open
The
like
chubby
a blooming
baby
flower.
swallowed him up in his mouth.
He danced
and
around
started
and
to chew
skipped over
vigorously
to the door.
He suddenly
When they
grabbed
came to the
towards
final
Qin
stone
Mu
step,
in excitement.
he saw Qin Mu rushing
Bad
into the
younger
door
brother,
first, die,
followed by the dragon
and
Qilin,
at that moment,
who jumped, kicked,
Qin Mu's
and shut the
corporeal
door
body
to block
took
him
out
out.
a willow leaf
and stuck it
Qi
gently
was
back on the
furious
heart
and
of his
hurriedly
brows.
rushed into the door.
Before the
Only
chubby
to
baby
see a
could
long
grab
corridor
Qin Mu,
filled with doors
a
on
formless
both
force
sides.
came sweeping over
Qi
and pulled him
broke
into the
down
abyss
and
collapsed on the ground.
Bad brother.
He grabbed
After
onto
the
the dragon
chubby baby
Qilin's
landed
tail
back on the ground
and let him drag
he
him
suddenly
along.
sat down on his butt
So
and
many
looked
doors,
around
until when must
he
we walk?
realized
He had fallen back
Anyway,
into the
even
seal
if
of
we go
Qin-word
out,
land. Our corporeal body
the
would have
white-bearded
died a long
elder
time
and
ago.
Crimson
Emperor were
At that
avoiding him by
moment,
hiding
a
in the
door
mountains.
suddenly
creaked open, and
Bad
a head
brother,
popped out from
I'll
inside.
eat you once I catch you.
Who are you guys? The chubby baby erupted
Why are
with
you
fury
guys here?
and crawled with his hands
The dragon
and feet
Qilin
towards
kicked
the mountains
Qi
onto a wall and
He
looked
planned
at the
to catch
person
the
clone of
curiously.
Heaven Duke and the consciousness
Qi
of the
slid
Crimson
down the
Emperor
wall
to vent his
and the
anger. Astonishment on his face
I'll beat
still
the
couldn't
old
be
one
wiped
first.
off before beating the
He
three
stared
heads.
at the
huge head that had
Both
popped
of them
out from the
hurriedly
door.
avoided him,
And the
It
clone
was a
of Heaven
head
Duke
that had a
said,
human face,
"There's no need
and
to
yet
be
two
afraid
strange
of him.
mountain
This is
goat's
the seal of
horns."
Earth Count.
There
It
was
will
a tuft
change
of mountain
continuously.
goat bead under his chin,
He won't be able
and
to
his
catch
mouth
us.
reeked of alcohol.
Crimson
Crimson Emperor said,
He burped and looked
also
at them
said
curiously.
that the previous time, and then
Qin
we
Mu
got
said
caught.
courteously,
It
Senior,
definitely
we are
won't
from
happen
eternal
this time,
peace, and have entered this
Qin
place
Mu
by
returned
mistake,
into
alarming
his body
Senior.
and sighed in relief.
May I ask Senior,
In front,
how can we get out of this
the
place?
corpse of Wu sank, and
The
Mingju
goat-horned
also
man
vanished,
covered up his shirt
Qin Mu
and
raised
walked
his
out
head
from the
to
door
look up and revealed a smile.
He was much taller than Qin
Goddess
Mu
of
and
heavenly
THG,
Yin, we have
and
finally
even
met.
taller than the dragon Qilin.
However, you don't
With a
have
solemn
to be
expression,
sad. He lowered
my
his head
divine
and
art
examined
might
them.
be able to help you
His
gather
gaze
your
fell
soul
on the
that has
dragon
been
Qilin,
consumed,
and he swallowed his
just
saliva.
as he said that,
Goddess
been
of
so
Heavenly
long
Yin,
since I've
who was
eaten
standing
meat.
in the sea.
It's a pity you
raised her
guys
foot
are
to step
primordial
over.
spirits, and there's no
Qin
flesh.
Mu's hair stood on end.
You're from
and
eternal
before he could
peace.
even execute any
What
divine
kind
art,
of place is
he
eternal
sprinted
peace?
back on the bridge and
From
quickly
his
reached
outfit,
where the god
he
of
wasn't
founding
someone
emperor
from the
was.
current times.
Without any
He wore the
explanation
outfit
of an
he
ancient
grabbed him
era
and
ran. The vein
Loud
lines of his
crumbling
lean
sounds
muscles
of
weren't as
palaces
sturdy as the
crushed
green
underfoot
bull,
came from
but it
behind.
gave people a feeling that he was
After
capable
Goddess of
and
Heavenly Yin's
experienced
foot missed,
the terrifying
she
feeling
turned
of
around
threat.
to chase.
Furthermore,
Her body stretched
he wasn't
all
a
the way
mountain
out of
goat
the space,
that had turned
and
intelligent.
every step she took was
From the
1,000
swirly
miles.
markings of all sizes on
However,
his body,
the speed
he
of her
should have been
taking
a
a step
primordial
wasn't
spirit
too
of a
fast.
god. Yet no one could
However,
match up with the
his
speed she
primordial
was moving.
spirit had already
It's those
cultivated
starved
into a
ghosts
physical state
that are controlling the body of
They
the
didn't
goddess.
know if he was the primordial
Qin Mu
spirit
quickly
that
guessed
was
the
guarding
reason
the knife.
why the skin of Goddess of Heavenly
Cultivating
Yin
one's
would lay her
primordial
hands on
spirit
them
to a physical state
without
was no
thinking.
ordinary feat.
He immediately took
and
out
it was
the life
obvious
and
his
death book
cultivation
to shine
was
at the
extremely
magnificent
high.
goddess. Qin Mu asked
He thought to
suspiciously,
himself,
is
Goddess
senior
of Heavenly
person
Yin
from
has
founding
already been
emperor
eaten
era
by those starved ghosts.
In that case,
so the
do you know
starved
about
ghosts
the great
actually
ruins?
possess the Goddess of
The
Heavenly
great
Yin.
ruins,
Which also
of
means
course,
Goddess
I
of
know,
Heavenly Yin is a
founding
starved ghost
emperor
herself.
ordered me to use the divine
Shining
knife
from the
to
life
slash
and death
one
book,
corner of Yudu,
the goddess
and
only
used it
paused
to
for a
construct.
moment as black smoke poured
Founding
out from her
emperor
eyes,
said to
nose,
cleave out a small
ears, and
new
mouth.
world that is about the
She
size
raised
of
her
the great
feet once
ruins.
more and chased after
That
them.
goat-horned man let
She is
out a
too
breath
huge.
reeking of
The
alcohol
life and death
asked,
book can't shine
where is
onto her
eternal
entire
peace?
body.
What
Qin
is
Mu
it?
used his vital chi
Senior
and
is the
controlled
creator
the
of
life
Fengdu.
and death book to float
Qin
behind
Mu's
his
mind
head.
trembled violently.
He sprinted
and he
furiously
hurriedly
and
said,
utilized
eternal
the heaven
peace is on
pilfering
the east
divine
of the great
legs that
ruins,
cripple taught him
and
to the
founding
extreme,
emperor era
raising his
already
speed
ended
again
20,000
and again.
years ago. Senior,
800
run.
years ago,
Qin
eternal
Mu
peace
felt
was
exhausted
founded from dragging
and now
the god
we
of
are in the
founding
midst of
emperor
reform.
along. He
Senior
couldn't
is a
unleash
god
his full
under.
speed. So
The
he
goat-horned
hurriedly
man
urged to the
seemed
god.
to be slightly intoxicated.
The god of founding
and
emperor
he muttered,
immediately
founding
took off,
emperor
and
era
his speed
already
was much
ended
faster than
20,000
Qin
years
Mu,
ago,
leaving him in his dust.
It's no wonder
Qin Mu
too.
was stunned and
I
said
think I've
angrily,
already been here for
so
7
that's how
to 8
loyal you
million
are.
years.
I even
I'm
shed
under
a few
founding
tears
emperor.
for you, Heavenly Emperor
If you can
Stars,
run
left
so
assistant
fast,
minister.
you should
My
have brought me
surname
along
is
as
Qin,
well,
and my name is Shu.
Suddenly, Goddess
However,
of Heavenly Yin
you wouldn't
stretched
know
her
me
palm
anyway
out to grab at him.
He turned around
The palm
and
from
returned
outer
to
his
his
room
room rubbed
to
against
take out
the
a big
atmosphere
wine
of
jar.
Heavenly Yin world.
He raised his
causing
head
flames
and
to
started
ignite from the
gulping down the
friction.
wine.
However,
Only then
the flames
did
were
Qin Mu
unable
notice
to burn
that
her
his
legs
legs
weren't human legs
Her
as well.
palm was like a vast
Instead,
land falling from
they
the
were bent
sky
goat
as she
legs that
grabbed
grew
at
a pair
Qin
of
Mu.
hooves.
Behind
Because
Qin
his
Mu's
stature
head
was very
the
tall,
life and death
his
book
hooves
shone
were very
brightly,
big as well.
and before Goddess of Heavenly
Founding
Yin's
emperor
hands could
celestial
reach
heavens,
her fingers turned
Heavenly
limp one
Emperor
after
Stars
another
left
as though
assistant
deflated.
minister. Yet even
Even
then,
then,
when
expression
this palm
changed
landed,
slightly,
it was enough
and he
to
thought to
completely
himself,
cover Qin Mu,
a remaining survivor of the
Seeing
fake
how
dynasty.
Qin Mu was about to be
Qin
covered
Mu
by the
was puzzled.
land-sized palm.
Senior,
Countless runes
you are
swirled
also
around
in a
his
primordial
body,
spirit
and his
form,
teleportation
right?
divine art
Could
erupted
it be
out.
that you aren't actually
The
here?
runes swirled furiously
Where could
around
your
him like
corporeal
yellow
body
joss
be?
papers. And when the
Qian Shu
runes
drank
turned
a big
into
mouthful
ashes,
of that jar of
Qin Mu
fine
vanished
wine
along with
and
them.
just shattered the wine
In
jar.
the next moment,
Qin Mu
appeared
immediately
1,000
noticed
miles
that
away,
after the wine jar
and
shattered,
countless runes
it
appeared
returned
around
to
him
normal
again.
quickly,
And there was
he
actually a
disappeared,
jar full of
and he
fine
was another
wine,
1,000
which was
miles
giving
away
off a nice
when he
fragrance.
reappeared. The
His
wine
body
jar
flashed
flew through the
repeatedly,
sky
and
returned
even
into
if he
the
had to
room.
risk exhausting all
It's
of his
hard to
cultivation
say with a few words.
he had to rush out of Heavenly
Qian
Yin
Shu's
world
expression
before Goddess
dimmed,
of Heavenly Yin
and he
caught up
returned
to him.
into the room to take some
Behind
wine.
him, the low bridge
While
crumbled
being slightly
continuously
intoxicated,
from Goddess of
he
Heavenly
asked,
Yin stomps.
"You are a descendant of founding
The long
emperor.
bridge
Am
couldn't
I
endure
right?
the weight of a natural-born
I can feel
goddess
founding
after
emperor's
all.
bloodline on you.
Qin Mu
and
was
your
not
appearance
far from
is
shore,
also
and at
slightly
that
similar
moment
to him.
and countless
That
monsters
little
swarmed
chicken
over
you
to
brought
latch
along
on him
should
just
be the
as he was
nine-headed
about
phoenix
teleport
race
again.
of that so-called celestial
Scravens.
Qin
Mu
Mu
executed the life
Southern
and
Heaven
death
Red
book,
deity
and the
Qi
monsters
Xiaoyu
turned
is pretty
into
remarkable.
skins.
She just
Above
had
his
to
head,
like Li Yuran,
Goddess
that
of
rascal.
Heavenly Yin's palm
He
smacked
raised
down
his head to
ruthlessly
drink again, before
Boom.
smashing the broken jar.
The sea of heavenly yin
Only
world
then
trembled
did he
violently,
continued his story,
and the ground on the shore
Back
also
then,
shook non-stop.
when founding emperor was creating
Astonishing
the divine
cracks
knife
stretched out
he
in
had
all
conferred
directions,
to me the title
and
of
loud
God of
rumbles
Knife.
came from all directions.
I could enter and exit Yudu freely.
Lava spewed out from
so
the
I
cracks,
was to cleave a portion
and yet
of
the
Yudu
lava
to
there
forge
was grey
Fendu,
as
and
well.
thus
I chopped
Goddess
off a
of
small
heavenly
chunk of
yin
Earth
raised her
Count's
palm,
horn, and the bridge broke.
Founding emperor wanted
The
to go
sea had been
carefree
drained
village,
out,
and a
So he
dried-up
ordered me to
seabed
stay
appeared.
guard at the Imperial
The
Gate to
seawater
prevent the
that was
darkness
originally
of the great
there had
ruins from
vaporized.
invading other places.
As she
which is
raised
the
her
eternal
palm,
peace you had
countless
mentioned.
runes flew around under
Qin
her
Mu
palm.
blinked his eyes and looked
In the center
at
of the
Qi
ruins
was a huge sword
Qi
pellet
Jui
that was like a
bewildered,
metal ball,
and it was
and the
obvious
sword
he
pellet
didn't know
was
about
actually
the secret
smashed
either.
in on one side.
Should I kill Brother
Whoosh.
Qi to silence him?
The runes burned and
Qin
the metal
Mu
ball
thought
vanished,
while wearing a smile
appearing
on
in
his
the town
face.
beside the sea.
Left Assistant
Goddess
Minister
of Heavenly
Tian Shu
Yin
sighed and
was
said,
in doubt,
however,
as she didn't see
I have a
Qin Mu,
problem,
who had
and that is I
teleported
like
away.
to drink.
She looked
Without
around,
wine,
but she
I'm
still
unhappy.
couldn't find him.
When I was on
In
guard
the town,
here,
the god
I
of
always
founding
wanted
emperor
to drink,
popped his head
yet
out
I couldn't
and
find
saw
the
the
face
sword
to
pellet
leave and
clanging
search for
around
wine.
in the town.
One day,
Qin Mu
my
tumbled
old
around
rival,
in the sword
which
pellet,
is the left
as
assistant
the metal
minister
ball
of the
bounced up
celestial
and down.
heavens called Yang Shaoqing.
In the sword pellet,
that
Qin
bad
Mu
guy
propped
wanted
up
to
carefree
gamble with
sword
me,
and used
and
it
the
as an
prize
axle.
was a wine that couldn't
Goddess
be
of
finished.
Heavenly Yin had nearly
This fellow
flattened
was
him along
hard
with
to
the
deal
sword
with
pellet,
usually,
and
he
he
had
had
used
used
carefree
carefree
sword
to not
This
get
guy
smacked
was
to
truly
death
bad,
by Goddess
as
of
he used
Heavenly
some
Yin.
method to hide the fine
However,
wine in
the sword
Imperial
pellet
Gate
deformed
deformed from the
knife
blow.
before leaving with a chuckle.
When the sword pellet bounced
I
up
clearly
once
knew
more,
it was a trap,
the metal ball
yet I
broke
couldn't
open
control my
and
mouth.
separated into 8,000
When I can't
swords.
control my mouth,
Qin Mu
I can't
leaped
control
out
my
and
head as
stretched his
well.
body. Qin
With
Mu
one
took a
hand
glance
raised,
at the dragon Chelin
8,000
and said,
swords collided
I
with one
understand
another
this feeling
and
of senior
transformed
very
into
well.
a small sword pellet,
You also
which
like
landed
to
in
drink.
his palm.
Tian Shu
Suddenly,
shook his head and
a crack
said,
came from
you
his
probably
palm,
don't like
and the
drinking.
tiny sword pellet
When you saw the
exploded.
wine,
You
turning
had no
into
desire.
a fine dust that fell
I
from the
couldn't
sky.
sit still and kept
Qin
wanting to
Mu's
enter
expression
Imperial
turned
Gate divine
dark
knife
as he looked
to
at
take
his
out the
palm.
wine to have a good drink.
Other than carefree sword
However,
that was in his palm,
I also
only
knew
a
the
pile of
Imperial
metal
Gate
dust
divine
was
knife
left.
was very powerful.
He had
and it
withstood
could
the pull
swallow the
from
Goddess
Goddess
of
spirit
Heavenly
of a
Yin
person.
and didn't die.
I'm
But
only
the
a
sword
knife
pellet
bearer
used to
and
block
not
the
the
blow
person
from
who
who
had
made the
shattered
knife
into powder.
Even if I'm not careful,
There was still support
my
from
primordial
Qin Mu's
spirit
vital
would
chi
also fall
previously,
into the knife
but once
and
Qin
be
Mu
unable
took
to
back
break his
free.
vital chi from the sword
However,
pellet.
I
It
really
couldn't
endure
endure
the
the
damage
damage
any
any
longer,
longer,
and
and
I felt
exploded
since
into
I
a
had
fine
controlled
dust.
the knife
For quite a
the
long
new won't
period
come
of time,
if the old
I
doesn't
might
go.
just be able to return
Qin
to
Mu
my own
still
body
felt a
after
pain
taking
in
the
his
wine
heart.
out.
It
The
was the
dragon
most
Chelin
compatible
couldn't
spirit
resist
weapon
asking that he
what
had
next
made when he had become a
Tian
divine
Shu
arts
sighed and said,
practitioner. And then I couldn't
it was a
return
spirit
any
weapon
longer. He had planned to use
That
his entire
scoundrel
life,
Yang Shaoqing
but
was
it shattered
right.
into fine dust.
I can
just
never
like
finish
that.
this wine.
The most
The
crucial
shattered
point
jar on the
was
ground
that the materials
recovered, and it
required
was still
for
full of
refining the
wine.
spirit weapons were
I've been
exchanged
drinking
with
here
Sai
for
Yin
7 to
Xiang
8
by
million
pawning
years,
everything he
yet I
had.
can never finish.
To
And I
refine
can
the
never
swords
walk
to
out.
the extent of flowing water,
Tian Shu said,
he had forged
the three
them
of
with
you
the
have
devil
come at
fire
just the
and
right
leave
timing.
fire together.
We can drink
and
together.
only then was his sword pellet
Qin Mu
completed.
and Qi Jui's heart
At that
were full
point,
of despair.
other than carefree sword,
If Tian
all
Shu
of his
had
other
stayed
swords
in Imperial
completely
Gate
shattered.
divine knife for 8
How
million
could he
years
not be pained
without being able to get out?
Luckily, they naturally
scammed a
couldn't
bunch
get
of
out
Buddha
as well.
Vitality Crimson
Were they
Chromium
going
from
to be
Sacra
trapped
Buddha?
in the divine
This
knife
kind of metal
and be unable
is a
to
unique
break
metal
free
to
forever?
the Buddha realm. Qi Jui
The
opened
amount
a
I've
door
scammed
with
is
trembling
enough
hands
for me to make
and
another
saw
sword
wine
pellet
jars
made
piled
from
up
Buddha
inside.
Vitality Crimson Chromium.
He opened another door,
Qin Mu
and there
let
was
out
still
a shaky
more
breath
wine jars,
and looked at the towering
more
goddess
and more
of Heavenly
doors were
Yin,
opened up
who was
by
still
him,
searching
and
around
inside
for him.
every single one of them
The god
was
of
filled
founding
with fine
emperor
wine.
ran out again,
Qi
and came
Jui
to the front
sprinted
of
forward
Qin Mu
frantically,
and
Qin
could
Mu
never
had
see
a
the
black
end of
face,
the long corridor,
and his anger
no
was
matter how
hard to
much he
appease.
ran.
No
On both
loyalty.
sides of the corridor, the
God
god countless
flushed with
rooms
shame
were
and
stacked
stretched
full
out
with
his
wine
hand
jars.
to pull him.
After
He
a
did a
long
running
while,
action,
he laid
but
down
couldn't pull him
disappointedly
along no
against
matter
the wall
what.
and was silent for
He
quite some
shrugged
time.
his shoulders helplessly.
He got up quietly
I
and
see.
opened a door to take out
Qin
a
Mu
jar of
came
fine
to a
wine to drink
realization.
heartily.
You
Not
don't have
long
magic
later,
power
he
or
was
corporeal
completely
body,
drunk, and even your
and the
primordial
wine
spirit
jar
is
in
gone.
his hand,
Thus
you
no
can't
matter
bring
how
me to
much he
run.
drank, the wine
All right.
never reduced.
I'm not angry anymore.
Senior, there are people
I need your
whose
help to
primordial
find a high
spirits entered
location,
Imperial Gate
a place
divine
where I
knife
can
by
shine my
mistake,
life and
yet
death
they have
book
managed
on
to
Goddess of
escape.
Heavenly Yin's face. face. Qin Mu's gaze flickered,
The god of
and he
founding
asked,
emperor
"Does
immediately
Senior
ran
knows
out
about
of the
this?"
town.
And when he
What
saw
you are
Qin Mu
saying
not
happened
following,
2,000
he immediately
years ago.
stopped to beckon him.
Tian Shu drank
Qin
up
Mu
and
hurried
wiped off
forward,
the droplets
and
of
the
wine
two of them
that
left
were hanging
into
down
the
his
distance.
mountain goat beard.
Not long after,
At that time,
they arrived at a
I
tall
felt
tower
imperial
beside
gate
the
divine
sea.
knife had actually
Qin Mu
connected
looked
to the
up
outside
and was
world,
astonished at how
but
tall
I was
the
so
tower
drunk
was.
that when I came back to my
Heavenly
senses
Yin world
and
was
wanted to
dim,
escape,
and he
it
couldn't
was
see
already
far
too
out
late.
into the distance. Qin Mu was
However,
stunned.
when Qin Mu executed
2,009
years
heavens
ago,
eyes awakening skill,
Granny Sai
he
and
could
the
still
rest
see
had
dozens
their
of
primordial
miles.
spirits trapped in
Yet,
the divine
when
knife
he looked
5
up,
years ago.
he couldn't see the top of the tower.
This means that one day
The grey
outside
fog
is
circled
1 year
around
over
the
here,
waist of the tower,
which also means
and he
that
truly
Qi Jui
didn't know how
and my
tall the
primordial
tower was.
spirit
has only been
the body
trapped
of the
in
tower
imperial
seemed
gate
to be
divine
constructed
knife
by
for some
2 days.
divine metal that gave off
Our
a black
corporeal
colored
bodies
sheen.
are still not yet
What is
dyed.
this tower used for?
His spirit was greatly
It's probably
aroused.
even higher than
He
crimson
had
light
run with
heaven
Qi
suppressing
Jui
for
floor
over
in
2 years
Kai-Shi's
inside
hand.
the knife. And
When
even
he thought
Qin Mu
until
thought
there,
his own
he saw the
corporeal
god of
body
founding
would have
emperor
died.
leaping up quickly.
Never
and
did he
scaling the
expect
ease
only
on
2
each
days
level.
passed.
Qin Mu
As long as
executed
my
heaven
corporeal
pilfering
body
divine
doesn't
legs
die,
and
there's
ran
hope.
up the tower.
Qin Mu's eyes
One
lit
leaped
up,
and one
and
ran
he said solemnly,
as they rushed up the top
"Senior,
of the tower.
after controlling
When
Imperial
Qin
Gate
Mu
for
rushed
so
up
long,
the peak of this tower,
you definitely
the
know
god had
how to
already been
execute
waiting there
Imperial
for him.
Gate. Am I
It
right?
was obvious he was much
You should
faster.
know the internal formation
Qin Mu
structures
exclaimed to
and
himself
rune structures
and took out
of
the
Imperial
life
Gate
and death
divine
book
knife
to place
in
in
and
the
out as
hands
well.
of the god. As
I
long
will
as you
cast
know
a
the
spell on the
internal
top of the
formation
tower,
structures,
and you
we
shall
can
stand
to
here.
solve. When I
No.
law goddess of heavenly
Qian
Yinova,
Shu shook his
you shall
head.
open up the book and
You've
use the
guessed
book
wrong.
to shine her. Even though
The god
I'm
of
able to
founding
control
emperor
this
nodded
divine
repeatedly,
knife,
and
I
as
know
Qin
nothing
Mu
about
was
the
about
rune
to jump
structures
down the top
and
of the
formation
tower,
structures
he heard
inside.
a flapping sound from behind.
The reason why I could be
He
the
turned
knife
around
bearer
and saw the
is
god
because of my
opening the
unique
life
constitution
constitution
book and looking at the
I can
shining
enter
page
Yudu
before deflating.
This divine knife
Qin
was
Mu
personally
didn't know whether
designed
to
by
cry
founding
or
emperor
laugh,
and used to sever
He
the
took the
horns
life
on
and
Earth
death
Book's
book,
head,
which was still shining
How
at him.
huge are the horns of Earth
Without
count?
the shine of the life and death
How
book,
powerful are
the
the
black
horns
sand
of Earth
flowed
count?
back and poured into the skin
Founding
of the
emperor
god.
personally designed this
Soon,
knife to
he
sever his
inflated
horn.
again. This shows how
Qin Mu
profound the
passed the
formations
life
and
and
death
runes
book
into
into his
his
hands
are.
again and said,
Qin Mu
"This is the
frowned.
front."
Qian
This
Shu
is the
continued
back.
to say,
And
"Don't
the
mix
person
them
that
up.
refined this knife
If you
was the
mix
most
them up,
powerful
we're
heavenly
both
worker
dead."
in founding
The
emperor
god of founding
dynasty.
emperor nodded his head
It's the
and beat
person
his
that I had
chest.
told you about earlier.
Qin Mu took
that
in a
Li
deep
Yuran
breath and
that had a
shouted,
thing with red
"Goddess
deity
of heavenly
Qi
yin,
Xiaoyu,
I am here."
This fellow is
His
handsome
voice rang
and
out,
is loved
and
by
his
all.
hands rubbed together.
What you mean is
His
that the
vital
person
chi
who had
transformed
forged
into the
Imperial
million
Gate
bird
divine
vital
knife
chi,
is Sacrobuddha,
and he spread a huge
Qin
fireball
Mu
out.
was astonished and delighted.
The light was like a blazing
He
sun
hurriedly
that lit up
asked,
the surroundings.
"It's Li Yuran."
The surroundings were silent,
Who is Sacrobuddha?
and the god of founding emperor held
Qian
onto
Shu
the
was
life
puzzled
and death book nervously.
Qin Mu was delighted
He dared
and
not
paced
to put
around
his
in the
guard
long
down.
corridor.
At that
He
moment,
said with a smile,
the land suddenly
Sacrobuddha
trembled violently
is none
as
other than Li
incomparably heavy
Yuran.
footsteps rang out.
Li Yuran is his
Special
layperson's
episode
name.
part 258.
To avoid his debts in the
Qin Mu
relationship,
took in a long
he left
breath
home to
and
become a
suppressed
monk.
the palpitation in his
Since
heart.
he refined Imperial Gate
To gather
divine
goddess
knife,
of heavenly
we
yin
might still
soul.
have a chance.
It was impossible
I've
with
learned
just
his
soul
technique
guide
before.
Soul Guide
Qian
was
Shu
a divine
originally
art
had a look
that
of
could guide
anticipation,
one soul back
but
from
he was
Yudu,
slightly disappointed
allowing the soul
when he
to
heard
return
what Qin
back
Mu
into
said.
his corporeal body.
So you're thinking about
Meanwhile,
that. I'll
goddess of
advise you
heavenly
to stop
yin was
wasting
eaten
your time
until only her skin was left.
Over here, even if
Her
you
soul
have the
might
greatest
also
divine
have been
art,
eaten
you can't
and turned
execute
into
it.
part of the black
Founding
sounding
heavenly
heavenly
yin
designed
world.
the runes here.
If
and
he
no
wanted
one
to
can
gather her
escape.
soul,
Otherwise,
he would have to make
how
some
could I have
changes
severed
to
the
the
horn
horn
of
of
Earth count?
Qin Mu was
He
also
revealed a
enlightened
look of excitement
by the god of founding emperor.
Back then,
and he thought of changing
I had
Soul
wielded this
Guide
knife
to gather
and
goddess
barged
of
into
heavenly
Yudin's
yin
soul,
chopping down a chunk
as
of
long
Earth
as goddess of
horn.
heavenly yin soul returned.
You didn't see that
she could
angered and
block the
astonished
control
look
Ming
in
Earth had on the
Count's eyes,
darkness of the great
cake.
ruins.
My life is truly
Furthermore,
worth it.
Goddess of
it
heavenly
was truly
yin
worth
also
it.
knew secrets that many
Qin Mu
people
paced
didn't,
to and fro,
and it
while
might help
recalling
Qin Mu
sacred
unravel
scripture
even
that
more secrets
Sacrobuddha
of the great
had imparted
runes.
to him.
In
There
addition
were
to
indeed
that,
numerous
the
things
goddess
that
of heavenly
didn't belong
yin
to
was a
Buddhism,
natural-born
and in
goddess,
the past,
and with
Qin
such
Mu
huge
had
assistance,
only learned the battle
pressure on
techniques,
eternal peace
and
would
didn't
be smaller.
comprehend the other things at all.
Of course,
all of that was
browsing it
based
in
on whether
detail.
he would succeed
Only
in
then did he
changing
notice
Soul
there were
Guide
numerous
and managing
marvels
to
of
gather her
forging
soul.
hidden in
If it
Sacrobuddha's
didn't
technique.
work, he definitely
He
couldn't
comprehended
escape from the
diligently,
pursuit of
and
goddess
another
of
half
heavenly
a
yin,
year had
and he would
passed by
only die.
unknowingly. The sound
Qian
of
Shu
footsteps
found
got
Qi Jui,
closer and closer,
and he raised the kid by the leg
could
to
see
drag
the
him
majestic
back.
body of goddess of
Both
heavenly
of them
yin
sat
appearing
down
faintly
and
in the
started to
fog.
drink with each other
She
until
hurried
they were
over
dead
according
drunk.
to Qin Mu's voice.
The dragon
because the
Qilin
staff
also
ghosts
joined them
controlled
and was
her
crying
body.
and laughing,
After
clamoring
all,
to become
she
sworn
wasn't
brother
the true
with
goddess
Qi
of
Jui
heavenly
and
yin,
Qian Shu,
and didn't have remarkable remarkable powers.
Just when Qin Mu comprehended
She
what he
couldn't see
needed,
what was in
he
the
heard
darkness
sounds of kowtow
and could
coming
only
out.
determine his location
He
by
saw
sound.
the dragon Qin
Qin Mu
focused,
and
and the gate of
kneeling
heaven
over there and
influence
suddenly
suddenly to a
appeared
wine jar
behind him,
seriously,
A
becoming
book gradually
brothers
became
that had
clearer
different
and
surnames
clearer
and
in his
breed.
hands.
We ask not
Standing
the same
on the
day
top
of
of the
birth,
tower,
but we
he
seek to
flipped
die
open
together,
this ancient book,
said the
and
three of them in
recited out the
unison.
Yudu writings inside.
Qin Mu shook his head and
Cryptic
coughed.
Yudu language came
I've
from his
thought of
mouth,
a way to leave
and it
this
was calm
place.
and steady.
The three
Behind
of them
him,
turned to look
the
at
gate
him.
of heaven influence
Qin
suddenly
Mu
turned
said,
around.
From Sakrabuddha's
The
technique,
gate, originally
I found
opened
a small
outwards,
flaw,
was
and
opened
from this
inwards.
flaw in his technique,
The lintel of the door
I will be
was
able
where
to
the
find
sill
the
had
flaw
been
which
and
he had
vice
left
versa.
behind after
The
forging
gate
this
of
divine
heaven
weapon.
influence was as it was named.
This imperial
a
gate,
gate that
divine
received
knife,
the
isn't
influence of
completely
heaven and
flawless.
earth. As
Heaven
long as
being
we find
shrouded
the correct
and
spot,
earth being Yudu,
I will be able to unleash
above the
gate of
lintel
heaven
of the door
influence
was the
and
territory
we
of
will be able
Shwandu,
to escape
and
into
under
Yudu.
the sill of the door was the
We can then
territory of
escape
Yudu.
into Yudu and
In
return
that
to the
past,
world of the living
Qin
from
Mu
Yudu,
never thought
which
returning
place
to our
represented the
corporeal
middle
bodies.
of heaven and earth.
Tian Shu tugged
It was
on his
clear
mountain
at that
gate
point
beard
that between
and cried
heaven
out,
and earth was the
"Escape
mortal
into
world,
Yudu."
but that there was
Wouldn't
also
that
a
mean
place
I
that
have
was
to
the
face
shade of
Earth
heaven?
count?
Having
I'm not
flipped the
going.
gate of heaven influence,
Earth count
heaven
will
and
eat
earth
me.
flipped.
I'm not
In
going.
that case, the shade
Qin
of
Mu
heaven
said
would go from
patiently,
below heaven to
"Senior
above
Tian,
heaven. I still have
Of
some
course,
face in front
the
of earth
change
count.
wasn't truly him flipping
If I
heavenly
come
yin
forth
world
to
around
mediate
and placing it
I
above
can definitely
Shwandu.
help both of you bury
Instead,
the hatchet.
he changed the structure
Senior,
of the gate
don't
of heaven
worry,
influence.
put your heart at ease.
By changing the structure
This
of the
video
divine
will
art,
end here.
the effect of the divine art would be different from the previous time, and that time, he had completely flipped things around. The book in his hands wasn't a tool for him to execute divine art, but instead, it was a tool for him to ensure every word he read was correct. It was equivalent to a dictionary of Yudu words. The undulation and